Alright, hello everyone. Welcome to the first episode of the GellatoBeach podcast. We'll probably come up with a better name for that later. But to give you an idea, it's going to be, the five of us here, maybe some different faces each week, discussing different esports, FGC stuff, MOBAs, fighting games like Smash, of course, included in FGC. But in the current state of them, big events that happen, tournaments, and that's going to be probably the first 40-ish minutes of the show. And then in the second half, we're just going to talk a lot more casual games, just what we've been playing recently and stuff like that. But before that, let's introduce you to who we have here on the stream, right here.
Hi, my name is Avery. I am 20 years old.
Big boy.
My top three favorite games are Banjo-Kazooie, Pokemon Emerald, and I'm having a very tough time picking the third, but it's between like Shovel Knight, Hollow Knight, Team Fortress.
Man said top five.
I just said I can't pick the third one. Fine. I checked my Steam library. I know which game I have the most hours in. It's Team Fortress 2. And Johnny, unfortunately, it tops your 1,000 hours.
Oh, really?
I have double.
Wow.
Really?
Holy shit.
2,000?
No wonder.
2,000.
He's cracked.
My main on Smash Bros. Is Incineroar. And my favorite esport. Do we consider speedrunning esports?
Yeah, sure.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Probably either speedrunning or CSGO.
Alright, my name is Caleb. I'm 21. And,
I'm an alcoholic.
We're here for you, Caleb.
My top three favorite games would have to be Minecraft coming in with a solid first place.
That's good.
Then following up with Divinity 2, Original Sin, great RPG. And then for the third one, it's a hard choice either between really any of the Souls games or like Monster Hunter World. But yeah. And then for my game with the most hours, I would have 1,700 hours on GTA.
Oh my god.
So yeah, just GTA. Classic.
Do you have a favorite esport?
Not really. I mean, I say I would like watching League because I understand it the most out of all the esports, but they're all fun to watch.
Nice.
Solid.
Alright, my name is Gianni and I am 20 years old. My top three games are League of Legends, Skyrim, and Dark Souls 3.
Poor soul.
Let's see, and League is my most played. I think I have, I'm gonna say around like 3,000 hours on that game.
3,000? Really?
Probably. I don't know, I haven't checked like the actual stats.
I would imagine a lot more because I stopped playing like
getting better has to start somewhere. The first step is your knowledge.
Yeah.
I stopped playing like senior year and I still have like 1,700 hours in that game.
Really?
So.
Oh yeah, no, I kept going. But I put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in that game, and money as well. A lot of. I'm very
MOBA fan.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Fan.
Johnny's a MOBA fan.
If I'm not mistaken, I think League is like one of the biggest esports out there. So
I think it is.
Probably
I think it
is.
is.
I like it may be tied with CS:GO, but
yeah,
like,
CS:GO's huge.
Well, I don't. Isn't Valorant kind of?
It's
Eh,
like
not
getting
really.
up there, but people really like it came
I
out and it
thought
was like a huge buzz.
Because I thought CS:GO pros were like, oh, we're out of here. We're going for Valorant.
They did like the first month, and then everyone was like, "All right, loser!" Like go back to the cool kids game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, all right, cool. My turn. My name's Evan. I am 20. I'm a big boy, and my top three games. Probably first place would have to go to Persona 5 Royal. I would say it's Definitive Edition. I started Persona 5. It's the original one that came out in like 2016, I believe. Would still be my favorite game, but Persona 5 Royal expands on it in every single way, and I would say is easily the Definitive Edition. If anyone was looking to play the game, I would say skip the original and just go straight for the Definitive Edition. Number 2, Breath of the Wild. Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Amazing game. I have easily sank hundreds of hours into that game, and I feel like I still haven't scratched the surface. Like I remember I saw on Twitter someone posted about like a village by the seaside. There's a little like sea shanty town, and I was like, I've never seen that.
That one's hard to find.
Can we cuss? Sound
yeah,
okay?
to an extent.
Okay.
Don't say anything. Don't-
I just had the thought.
Say something you would say in front of my mom at the restaurant, but nothing.
That's a lot.
But nothing worse than that.
Okay, yeah,
So-
for sure. Okay.
I'm racist.
Yeah,
Just
nothing-
kidding. I'm not,
Please
okay.
don't say that.
All right. And yeah, so Breath of the Wild, amazing, absolutely, like a must. Like if you have a Switch, must play, 100%. And then third, it was a really tough toss-up between the Souls series. I kind of clumped the Souls series games into each other because they're all really good but very similar. But I think Monster Hunter World definitely has to take the edge on that one. Fucking fantastic game. I can't recommend it more to anyone with a functioning piece of technology.
I've never really been
Should
into
probably
Monster
run.
Hunter, but I'm kind of into the idea of it for the new one coming out.
Yeah, and there's
Pretty
that
fun.
new one coming out, which, you know, if you have a Switch, you can't play World, but you can play the new one's coming out, I believe, March? Yeah,
I
March.
almost feel like it would be better to play it on PC though. Is it coming out on PC?
No, it's not
Oh,
coming
okay,
out.
never mind.
It's a Nintendo exclusive. Well, like, the Monster Hunter franchise has a long time been, like, a handheld series, which is really interesting, because World was the first HD release of a Monster Hunter game ever.
Right, and looking at it, I would, if you hadn't have told me that, I wouldn't have known that. Like, I would have been like,
Right.
oh, this is a long-standing PC series.
I believe it
Well,
originally
absolutely.
launched on the PlayStation, like PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2 type shit.
Well, I remember playing the demo for one of them on the 3DS in like 2014-ish,
There,
and I was like, man, these graphics are poo-poo on the 3DS.
it's
would
it's
look
one of
great
those
on PC,
series that like suffers from like the spin-off syndrome where you have like Monster Hunter, Monster Hunter 2, Monster Hunter 2U, Monster Hunter 2 GU4 X Force, Monster Hunter 3X GS Force. You know, like it just has like a million spin-off games, and they're all on handhelds, and they're like the same game.
Right.
But that game's amazing. The only thing is that it is grindy, but it's like it's a very satisfying grind. You know, if anyone likes Destiny or like RPGs or anything like that, those games are same kind of shit. And then honorable mention, I would say the Souls games because they're just fantastic. If I had to choose a favorite, I'd say Bloodborne probably. We all played Bloodborne on stream
I
a while
really
back.
liked it, and when it comes out on PC, I'll be getting it.
Yeah, same.
Yes, exactly, because we've heard rumors, nothing confirmed yet, but hopefully it's
Always
coming to
rumors.
PC.
Wouldn't that be nice?
It's a absolute banger of a game. And then esports, I like speedrunning. Like Avery said, speedrunning is amazing. I love watching even like janky games.
Oh.
Like if everyone, the big one that everyone's talking about right now is Moist Critical speedrunning of Mr. Krabs
Krabs
overdoses
ketamine.
of
I thought
ketamine and
I
dies.
thought you were talking about silliness, like how they speedrun, and I've told this before, where it's Kirby's Tilt Tumble, but they have to play it by holding a GameCube upside down with a Game Boy adapter and like.
Absolutely, and that's the amazing thing that I think is so great about the speedrunning community is that Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild sex percent. Have you ever heard of that?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There's the
If you have to speedrun as fast as possible to get to spend the night with Paya. Or there's like dog pet percent.
Right, that's
And one of my favorites I've seen recently is the pencil sharpening.
There's a pencil sharpener in Breath of the Wild.
No. This is not Breath of the Wild. It's just a speed run for IRL pencil sharpening.
Oh.
How fast you can sharpen 10 pencils. Literally, it's like there's like a huge community for like the pencil sharpening like
Of all
speed runners.
things.
And there's like a 1 pencil category, a 10 pencil category, and a 100 pencil category.
Sure.
And these people are dedicated. Like it's crazy. Like they have special like rigs set up with hand sharpeners
Oh my
and
God.
like there's it's a new community, so the
Sure.
rules are still very fluid.
I
So
like that.
a recent world record actually saw someone attach a sharpener to the end of a drill, and then
Wow.
hold down the drill and just.
What are the
So, like,
requirements? I wonder for like how sharp it has to be. Have to be, like,
No, you have
stab
to
yourself.
completely sharpen
Oh,
the
All
entire
the way
pencil.
down.
That's
So-
even more interesting. I like that.
Yeah, so it's not just sharpening
Wait,
like
because
the
you
pencil.
would have problems if it was like up for debate. Oh, that pencil's not sharp enough.
Right, it's not
Oh,
sharp
you broke
enough.
the lead. You gotta do
No,
it
you
all
have to sharpen it all the way down to the little metal bit at the end.
It's a little bit. It's a bit of a waste, but that's kind of cool.
Yeah,
That's
it is
interesting. And
absolutely.
is there like
wasteful.
is there a set pencil? Like, does everybody use number?
Yeah, you have to use like the standard like 2
Speedrunning is
uh,
esports.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is it considered esports like speedrunning?
Well, pencil
speedrunning
sharpening
is-
probably
like,
not.
Because
But
I had asked.
General speedruns probably.
The E in esports wouldn't really fit the pencil sharpening.
Yeah, but speedrunning is absolutely an esport, and that's evident by like they always have speedrunning competitions. One that I can think of.
GDQ.
Yeah, GDCQ is a great one,
Yeah.
and they always have. There was a recent one with like a Mario 64 speedrunning thing where they flew out a bunch of the top Mario 64 runners, and then they have like a big ass prize pool where like if they break the world
sounds
record,
like an esport
that
to
sounds
me.
like an esport. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But
And we're going to talk more about what esports are and all that here in a bit, and what really defines them as such.
For sure.
But
And then,
I think
to wrap up my section, I like to play Joker because Persona 5. Fantastic that he's in this game. We got so many RPG reps and Smash. And
RPGs are fun, man.
I dabble in League, unfortunately, and I like playing Vayne. That's it.
You're retired though.
Yeah, I'm retired. I'm hands off. I come back every now and again to whoop some ass, but other than that, yeah, hands off. Alrighty.
And I'm Nathan. We're in my basement. I'm 21. And my 3 favorite games probably be Mother 3, definitely in first. I'm a huge fan of the Mother Earthbound series and just quirky RPGs like that. Obviously Undertale is a masterclass in that, but Mother 3 is more where it's at for me. I think second would probably go to Pokemon Heart Gold.
Oh,
Excellent game.
Johnny
Best in
Vanilla.
the series. But third would be something either Smash Ultimate, just because I've sunk so much time and been so passionate about that game longer than any other game, or Donkey Kong Country 2 on the SNES. Played that with my uncles a lot. My most played game of all time is Destiny, the Destiny franchise. If you count between Destiny 1 on Xbox 360, Xbox One, and Destiny 2 on PC, I probably
They're
got
two
like...
separate games, though.
No, I'm counting the franchise. Because it's basically the same game.
yeah.
They sold you the same... They sold me the same game so many times.
Twice.
Yes. Well, if you count DLCs.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But
there you go.
no, I probably sunk like 2,000 to 3,000 hours into that over its lifespan, and I'm still dog shit at that game. I'm terrible at it. But that's probably my most played game. My main in Smash, which is my most competitive game that I take seriously, would be Lucas up there. Obviously going in line with the Mother 3 thing. And my favorite esport would also go to just the FGC and fighting games, specifically Smash and Guilty Gear, Dragon Ball Fighters. I think those are all just fun to watch. The character interactions, the one-on-one nature of it. It's all a lot of fun for me.
Yeah, I definitely feel you. With the FGC is really fun, and a lot of fighting games are really interesting. And like something that's really interesting about the FGC versus any other esports community is like the one-on-one nature of it, because like almost all other esports like Rocket League, CS:GO, Valorant, League, it's all about the team aspect. Like you can speak to that, Gianni, right? Like how much you have to work.
If you're losing games, you have the option of saying, "Oh, my team sucks. I'm getting sandbagged by these guys." But you do not have that option in a fighting game.
That's what I like about the fighting
If
games,
you lose the match, it is all on you.
Yeah, you're either butt cheeks or you're not, and that's all on you. Rests squarely on your shoulders and nobody else's.
I've heard it likened. I think it was a YouTuber, Super Eye Patch Wolf, if you guys know him.
Oh yeah.
Mentioned how fighting games are similar to like pro wrestling in that you get like these characters who get arcs by like winning matches and losing matches. Except it's not like pro wrestling in that it's not staged in any way. It's like, this guy happened to lose a match to a 15-year-old girl at EVO, and he's the best Snake player in the world. That's crazy. That's a big deal, And she was playing Isabel, of all characters.
Does that actually happen?
Yeah, that happened at
It was,
EVO.
What was his name?
He's roommates with, like, Esam. He's, like, the best Snake player. He's, like,
He got too cocky.
I don't know. I think he might have just
maybe
not known the
with-
matchup. It's like,
I
Snake,
think within
I
the
can see
Isabel
him trying to
community,
play
people
forward.
say that matchup's actually pretty even. They think
The pocket.
that Isabel Snake is actually like one of her best matchups.
and I'm sure he hasn't fought a ton of Isabels. She's, like, one of the least popular characters in the game, I'd imagine.
Probably not.
From what I've seen.
Right.
Just one of the least played.
I just
I'd say.
remember like that like 15-year-old like Isabel player had like a crazy run at Evo, and it was like super unexpected. And those are just like some of like the awesome like anime moments that happen.
Oh yeah.
In the FGC.
But to get more into esports as a whole here,
one quick question
Okay.
while we're just wait. Squidward Tennis Balls 1212 has asked a very important question for us.
Oh.
What is
Wait.
our
The
Squidward Tennis Balls
We're
1212
in the chat right now.
Wow.
in
Can't
chat
believe
right
it.
now has asked what are our guilty pleasure games?
Ooh.
Destiny 2.
We were just talking about those.
Guilty pleasure games.
You have to come in clean with this
Wow,
one.
wow, wait, I'm already getting outed. What are we, like 10 minutes in? Alright. Hentai games are real games. Next.
Dude, I've seen some crazy titles on Steam.
Some
Oh,
crazy.
Like,
Okay.
Steam just allowed it.
I just want to say that it's been a big point of contention on Steam. So a while back, like Steam's policy with NSFW games is like they were like, we don't know, and they were just like, maybe we'll allow it, maybe we'll take it off the store without saying anything. I'm not sure. And then they had this like period where it was like a month, and they're like, nothing, no, like if it has ankles in it, it's banned. You know,
That's so
no
strange.
boobies at
Because
all.
I remember in like 2015, 2016, I want to say, I watched like, I think PewDiePie play like Honey Pop.
Yeah,
And I was
Honey-
like, oh, did they take their clothes off when you solved the three in a row
Yeah.
puzzles?
I have beaten that game very handily. But that game, I was actually going to bring that up. Honey Pop was actually removed from the Steam store.
Really? It was?
Yeah, for
That's
that
an
month.
old game.
But then they reworked their thing and they're like, you know what? Psych, everything is allowed.
Yeah,
and
I
we
know.
have.
Like you go on the Steam front page and it's.
I literally
it's-
get recommended so much bullshit because I want like adult only because like Skyrim is like one of the adult games, you know, because like there's like movies
Yeah.
in it. So it's like I'd like to see games like Skyrim recommended, but then I get like Fuda, Dick, Dine, and Dash.
That's the
recommended.
game.
I
That's the
keep
game I was
putting
thinking
it
of.
on the front page.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
like,
like
on the
I
front
don't
page.
need- I don't want this. I don't
want it.
I get it on sale for like half off. I don't want it.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah. So
Oh,
why don't we go around the
I would
guilty
say-
pleasure games?
Destiny 2 is probably my guilty pleasure game. I don't like, honestly, I don't tend to play a lot of games outside of like with you guys. Like I don't play games by myself aside from, you know, the occasional RPG that I get really into for a week and play 100 hours of it and then don't play games for a month. But I do like find myself every couple months, I'm like, new Destiny expansion just dropped, new season's out,
Yeah.
I'm going to get into this for 3 weeks on end, non-stop, and then not play it at all. Drop $100 and
I think I want to make like I want to figure out what exactly we're talking about. So like a guilty pleasure game is something that's like maybe a little sus to play. Maybe you'd be shunned a little bit for doing so, but doesn't mean you don't like it. I feel like that's what we're going for as a definition of a
I
guilty
was thinking
pleasure
more
game.
like you're like, you know, I just.
I like
This
it.
is
I
something
don't
you
care
keep
what
coming
anyone
back
else
to.
says.
I like it, and I don't care what anyone else says.
Like even if
I-
other people say it sucks, like I like it a lot.
yeah, it's pretty much Destiny, except I'm actually just guilty about it too.
Avery?
No pleasure.
Any-
No
any-
pleasure.
Guilty.
I don't know. Probably Team Fortress. I mean, I think we
You
all
still
agree.
play it?
Every once in a while, every like couple.
I have it downloaded.
I'll just play, exactly, and like you know, I'll just play it every once in a while. But I don't think everybody thinks that game sucks. I think everybody kind of has this soft spot for it. But yeah, every once in a while I'll just come back to it. Probably why I have that many hours in it.
Nice. I'll go next, I guess.
I can go next. I mean,
Okay, go,
Hey, you fight rock paper scissors.
All right, I have to admit, sometimes I will go offline on Steam,
Uh-oh.
and then I'll go and like play some Skyrim.
I've been wanting to get back into it too.
And I'm like, man, I can't let anyone see me play Skyrim. They're gonna think I'm
Nate was
crazy.
playing Skyrim the other day.
But
so.
it happens every once in a while. Gianni?
Yeah, okay, so a while ago I found this browser game. It's basically no, it's not what you think. Or,
It's
I
not
don't
balloons.
know.
It's not balloons.
It's not
Oh,
Balloons.
yeah,
I'm
damn,
proud,
how could we
I'm proud to
forget?
play that game.
Balloons Tower
Absolutely
Defense.
amazing.
Balloons is a pretty good guilty pleasure game.
Yeah,
Anyway,
that
please
one's good.
continue.
It's like it's basically like Roblox CS:GO.
Wait, was that the game?
Oh,
you
I
played with
know. We
Daniel?
were playing.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah,
That's really funny.
They got me into like making a profile and anything, so there's like skins and stuff, and I'm like, it's pretty good.
It's
And
Damn.
yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, if I had to say guilty pleasures, it's like I will go. This is off the record, so I don't get sued by anyone. But I will go on like Vim's Lair, and I will like start downloading emulators. Like it's no like I go on these crazy like tangents where I will just like download like Dolphin and like PSX emulator and like so many emulators, and I'll start downloading games. And I'll just like play all these like old
Gotta
retro
have 'em all.
arcade games.
Gotta have
I
'em all,
remember
yeah.
it was like through the span of 1 week, I think I played like all the mainline Castlevania games, and I just like
I remember that you were asking me like,
emulate.
which
yeah,
one is this one?
I
again?
kept
How do I
messaging
do this
you
one?
like which one I should play next. What
Yeah,
should I
yeah,
play
yeah.
next? I like emulators are just so fun, and the thing is, the amazing thing about emulators is that they're emulating like just ancient like dinosaur ass technology, right? Like the SNES and like the N64. So like anybody with like a poop ass potato laptop,
Yeah.
can download an emulator and play any like old school
They
games.
can, but no one would do that.
No one
it's,
would-
it's
no one-
illegal.
No one
Yeah,
would
I'm not
seek
saying you
out-
should do this, and I'm not saying I have ever done that.
Emulators are legal?
No,
Cut out like
Emula-
3 minutes
okay,
ago.
Emulators are actually, I'm pretty sure emulators themselves are legal.
They are.
Yes.
It's downloading ROMs.
ROMs,
that's
I
illegal.
know.
okay.
You can distribute emulators.
Well,
they haven't been taken
You know,
down at all.
if you
I
are
love downloading
extracting
emulators
the
and just staring
ROMs.
at
Yeah,
them.
just, and having the emulator.
Well, no, if you're extracting the ROMs from a cartridge that you own, you're
Yeah,
allowed to play that. or
actually,
a
so
disc
what
that
I'm
you play
doing
on.
is I'm finding my
Right, you
N64
go on
cartridge
eBay. Yeah,
your
of
console
Donkey
doesn't
Kong
work.
64, and I'm putting that into the N64 slot on my PC.
But of course,
and-
your console is not working for that.
Yeah.
So that's why you have to do this. So.
Most of that word down there. But anyway, yeah, you're going on eBay, you're buying Castlevania Symphony of the Night, plugging it into your PC, and ripping that, and then it's fine.
yes,
But
absolutely
we would
legal.
never, we
Yeah.
would never download anything off the
I would
internet.
never go on SteamUnlock.com and download Undertale and play it for 3 hours.
I would never go to Pro
Um,
Hazard and
Real
download
quick, we
anything.
have a question in chat regarding some esports stuff.
All right.
So PGR being the Panda Global Ranking, I think they have that for a bunch of different games. I know they've got it for like Guilty Gear, for instance.
Right,
Kizzy
it's-
K's rank pretty high.
It's like a generally
but like
respected.
one of the
ranking
biggest ones
system.
that's known is like Smash Bros. I think that's what we're
What's-
seeing referred to in chat. PGR is the Panda Global Ranking. Panda being a big esports network. And we're getting asked, do we think the Panda Global Ranking Network will look different when online tournaments hopefully eventually resume? And I think, that's an interesting question because things obviously look a little
You
different.
said online.
Yeah.
In
that's what it
person.
says.
In person, my
In
apologies.
person.
My apologies. When in-person tournaments hopefully resume. And obviously things look different like right now. For instance, Best NES is ranked really, really high at the moment. Pretty high, at least, I think.
Is there a PGR right now?
There is. But
'Cause I didn't
but the
see
thing
one for the
is,
2020 season.
he's been ranked really high, but he was not ranked high at all before online play was like the big thing, before COVID happened, right? When in-person tournaments were the thing, you wouldn't even see him on the top 100. But now that online's happening, he's got a character who debatably benefits a lot from online play. He's suddenly ranked really high. Well, is he going to stay ranked really high if offline comes back? Like, is he developing more talent, or is he being carried by lag,
Good question.
Personally, I think he is a very skilled player and he's talented, and I think he'll probably be still ranked pretty high. But like, it's gonna be really interesting to see these online warriors. The dreaded camping Sonic online.
Ganondorf F Smash.
I have to
how they're gonna
interject.
perform.
I am on Liquipedia right now, which is usually where the PGR is hosted. And the last, it says it's currently suspended due to COVID. So the last one we have is the PGR for fall 2019.
My apologies.
So so I think that's intentional because I think it's being frozen right now because
Because they would
of
be worried
it-
about that
yeah.
happening.
Well, it questions the validity of like the rankings because obviously online is like a very
Whole different
different ball game exactly to in person, and it's like a big huge distinction to
Somebody
make.
might have a the monitor can make a difference.
Right.
This monitor might have some input lag or something, or
Yeah.
a delay,
And
so might not.
like for League, say, online like is a pretty valid, like you could say like the top people in like the what's the solo queue ranking? It's like what's the highest rank?
Challenger,
So, and then you can see like the top, like how
Yeah.
many players in Challenger?
200.
And you would say those people are probably like really good,
Yeah.
right? And like if they were to join a team, you would expect them to do fairly well,
Yes.
right? So the thing is with the League, the latency is kind of part of the game, whereas in the fighting games, like the FGC, like
Tournaments have always traditionally been in person. Like,
Yeah.
going all the way back to Battle of the Bay in like 2000.
right, which is now Evo.
Yeah, exactly. They were like, I'm the best at Street Fighter. No, I'm the best at Street Fighter. All right, tell everybody who thinks they're the best here this day. We're gonna settle it, right? no lag, because obviously online wasn't even a thing back then, and
Right.
because that's how it was established as a framework. It's always been lagless competition, taking as
Exactly.
many variables
Whereas-
out as you can.
Whereas League of Legends is primarily online.
Yeah,
It was
and in the
conceived
first
as an
place,
online game.
yeah.
FGC has always been a grassroots thing. It always started in arcades, It always started in person as like this person's house, or we're gonna go down to this person's basement. It's never been an
Arcades.
online affair because of how like latency affects fighting games and how of a dramatic impact it has on that. Which is why exactly like what we were talking about with the PGR. We have to question whether these rankings are reliable because of how much latency. And let's be honest, Smash netcode is absolute dog
It's
shit.
really bad.
It's horrible.
I don't like playing online
offensive.
casually.
And
like,
back
at
to
all.
the first point I mentioned. I guess I wasn't looking at the PGR official rankings, obviously, but there was definitely a ranking where Bestness had shot up to like 30th.
Maybe like Smash.
It,
CG.
yeah, it was something like that. And I'm wondering, how are players like him, and I think Sonic's is another good example, who's obviously the campy Sonic.
Oh God.
Yeah. How are they going to fare when offline comes back eventually? And they have to play without that aspect there. I don't know how that's going to pan out, but I think it's going to be really, really interesting to see. I mean, obviously, players like MKLeo have stayed relatively highly ranked, even with online play in mind. So obviously, best player in the world remains the best player in the world for the moment. But, how are things going to shake up when
But did
things
he
come back?
change his character?
He doesn't really play. He has vowed to not play Joker online.
Yeah, that's one thing that I saw as a
I'm gonna turn that off.
pretty big deal. He says that he believes Joker is not a character to be played online. He thinks that it's strictly offline because of like the execution, I guess,
Sure.
that it takes, and like a lot of his combos and stuff are really difficult to perform online.
Well, I think especially then if your top player is saying that your online is so bad that he can't play his character online.
Who he's won like every
He's
major
won
tournament,
and
save
that
for
could be said of any
Genesis
game.
7.
I'm not saying it's just because of Smash Bros. Having bad online, which is
It
definitely does, and partially the problem. But I think if in any fighting game your problem would be I can't play this character because they are not good online, then online is the problem.
Yeah.
Period.
Is it like a really hard fix to fix like an
I
online
don't
system?
know.
That's the thing. There's different ways to go about coding online systems.
Yeah.
They would have to rework it.
Yes. So, like for instance, if you look at an older fighting game like Fighters, right? Dragon Ball Fighters utilizes a delay-based netcode. What?
Yeah.
Is it older?
It's not really old, but it just uses an
Sure,
outdated
but
method
you
of
could-
online,
yeah.
the traditional one. Delay-based netcode basically. I think you have a better idea of this. Both players' computers are sending signals to each other constantly of like he's moving forward, he's throwing a punch, he's jumping to avoid it, he's holding block, right? I'm not quite sure how they interact. If you
Yeah,
remember that
I
better.
can explain it. I was explaining this to Caleb just the
Yeah.
other night. So you tell me if this makes sense from an outsider's perspective. But basically, delay is like what you're familiar with. Like, say you play League of Legends or almost any other online game. So what happens is you're on your computer, and your opponent's on their computer, and you both have to go through a server. And so you have to send information from your computer to the server, to their computer, back to the server, back to you. And that's how you guys play the game. And that obviously takes time because you have to send the information over the internet. And even though it's blisteringly fast, milliseconds make the difference in, games. Like split-second decisions are, what really matter. And so when you've got like 50 milliseconds of delay, like that makes a huge difference. That's almost half. No, it's not half a second. It's a
It's a big difference in
Big
terms
difference.
of
And so what fighting game players have basically come up with, because of how much it affects fighting games specifically, is what's called GGPO, or rollback netcode, is more commonly referred to. And what that does, it kind of predicts what you're going to do. So it's basically two technologies. Half of it is prediction, so it's just trying to guess what each player is going to do. And you're running the game separately on each system, and then and usually these technologies are used like in tandem, so you use delay and rollback
Yeah,
together.
because what it is doesn't it like take an average of the delay of both and then purposely delay each one a few frames and kind of predict in that delay, and then if it gets something wrong on one of those 2-frame early predictions, it'll just cut to what's correct when it has that information available.
Yeah, and so what GGPO basically looks like to someone playing with it is a little bit of teleporting, because say someone does like a kick, okay, and say you have 7 frames of delay until that kick gets to your opponent. In regular delay-based netcode, you guys would both just wait 7 frames, right? But in and this is like a really bad connection. Like 7 frames is like
Sure, that would be awful.
so having to wait 7 whole frames, which is 7/60ths of a second, because all fighting games are in 60 frames a second. If it has rollback, then it just actually cuts 7 frames into their animation when the opponent receives the information. So it'll look like a little bit of teleporting 7 frames into the animation. And so that obviously sounds like a horrible thing to have your opponent teleporting around. So that's why you use a combination of both delay and rollback.
Gotcha.
Yeah. The one thing I've seen people complain about with that is I think it's on Fightcade actually for Third Strike, Street Fighter Third Strike or Street Fighter 2 Champions. Yeah, it's a thing where the KO screen comes up frame 1 when you run out of health, and because of the nature of rollback, if you're walking forward and the game thinks you're going to continue walking forward, you're not going to hold back to block, and they throw out a punch, they're just like, okay, he's going to get KO'd, and so you'll get a KO screen for like 3 frames, and then it realizes, oh my god, he reacted and blocked, and cuts it out, so you'll just get this like phantom KO screen. That's like the biggest complaint I've seen. But the thing is, if you don't have your interface telling you what's going on in literally frame 1, that's no longer an issue.
Yeah, and it's just the game wasn't designed for it.
Totally.
So if you have like a 7 millisecond response time monitor, then you wouldn't even notice it.
I guess not.
Well, I mean, I think the monitor is kind of, since it displays information, like it doesn't really like interpret it.
It won't,
So
like, cut the
you would still
information
get
if
it.
it's
You would just get
redundant.
7 frames later.
Yeah, that's what that does.
All right, cool. We have any other questions?
Not
we
from
answered that
chat
one.
thus far.
That's a good one.
So we can go back
Yeah,
through
I know.
our...
All right. So
Please ask more questions.
it's a little
Feel free.
late to be
It's,
tackling this, but we've been talking about esports a lot. But what classifies esports as, I guess, esports?
or like a sport.
What
right?
as a sport, and what makes them unique compared to traditional sports like basketball, baseball, boxing, and what are some different types of them? That's a lot of basic stuff to cover, and we've covered a lot of it already, but just briefly, all at once.
Anyone want to start this one off?
I mean, I have no idea what I'm talking about, so I might be talking on my ass, but for me, an esport is just like any sort of competitive game where it's using like technology. Yeah, I don't know. Tell me if
Do
I'm
you
wrong
guys
here.
consider esport like a sport? Like as some people claim it is?
I do. I think that besides
it's a little weird.
if you're removing the physical aspect, it's identical. And like sports psychologists are actually used. Like people who do like sports psychology and sports therapy for like basketball players and like other traditional sports, they are hired and used in the esports communities because it's the exact same thing.
Translates?
Like it translates 1-to-1. Like all the sports psychology is 100% intact.
If you think about the other words that are related to sports, like sportsmanship, you still use that word pretty commonly in a video game. Like, oh, you have to have good sportsmanship,
And you have players, and you know what?
teams.
This is like undeniable proof. Esports players can apply for sports visas. So you know how say a soccer player goes to play in what's the big soccer tournament? I forget. I'm stupid.
Yeah, I remember
The big one,
yeah. I remember
the-
watching the Smash documentary on YouTube. It mentions how for one of the first big Smash tournaments, that Armada, who is I think Swedish, had to get a sports visa in order to come to America to play Smash, and he actually got it denied the first time because they were like, "What? A sports visa for Smash Bros? You're crazy!" And then he had to reapply and do this whole thing, but he ended up
But
being
he
able to
got
come.
it.
Right.
Yeah.
So
But-
if people are able to get sports visas for esports, then
So
by
legally,
definition,
yes.
Yeah, exactly.
So-
There's no way to kind of refute
and
that.
you could be like, oh, I don't consider it the same as other sports. You could be like, oh, it's not the same.
It's a little
Obviously,
weird
it's
to
not the
call
same. It's an
them
esport.
athletes because that's directly,
The physical
derived from athletic,
Yeah.
being
Athleticism.
physical.
Yeah.
But the thing is, there is an aspect of athleticism to it. If, for instance, in fighting games, I know I'm, using those a lot, but learning those motion inputs and being very, precise with your fingers and your hands and your movements, that is a form of athleticism, I would say.
And they are called athletes. Like I know you said it seems a little weird because it derives from the term athleticism, which has to do like innately a physical thing. But like they are referred to as esports athletes. Like that is what the common term for them is, and I'm pretty sure that's how like they're referred to like with visas. They are athletes, performing their sport. So it is. I would say it is an apt name to use.
I think it's really interesting. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think it's really interesting to look at how esports as a whole kind of, I would almost say, make a more welcoming and more level playing field of a competitive environment than traditional sports. Because while there are, you have to have hands in order to play
actually,
esports.
Generally. If I want to interject really quick. There is a really like good Street Fighter player who is paraplegic, and he only has functions in his mouth, right? And he plays on a gamepad, like an Xbox 360 controller, and he plays, and he's really good, and he just plays with his mouth. So that's like, esports are way more accessible than traditional sports. Like, there's no way you can play.
And I've seen,
unless your console in question is out of stock.
True. It's more of, I guess, a financial thing.
Well, controllers and Microsoft is making a lot of very accessible controllers for lots of different types of people, and I think it's very wonderful. And so, really, I would say, it's way more accessible.
And I think it creates a more fair environment because in sports, say basketball, obviously tall people always traditionally have an advantage, even if they don't like basketball at all. They have an advantage because they're closer to the hoop. The rules of the game apply to them a little differently, or at least they can abuse the rules a little differently than, say, a short person could. That is not an issue in any competitive game because you pick your character or you pick your guns for CSGO or something like that, and everyone starts in the exact same space, the exact same place. All right, you're at a fighting game. Each of you has a third of the screen, and you have your character's moveset. They have theirs. You have the same amount of health sometimes, it's a lot more mental. I have to outthink them. You have to outperform them. You have to do the combos that you know how to perform.
Basically,
all that.
In essence, everything is available to each player equally, pretty much. You have all the same information. You have all the same, in basketball, somebody could be taller than the other person. But in this case, that's not possible. Yeah, you could pick different characters, but there's the potential that you could both pick.
Just pick a
you
top
have
tier
access to
You
the
both
characters.
have access to that's the trick.
And I'm gonna butcher I basically watched a video essay about this very topic, and it's about the way that traditional sports are structured by rules versus how esports are structured by rules. In traditional sports, the rules are all about telling you what you can't do. You can't do this. Like if the basketball goes out of the court, then you gotta like reset the thing. I don't know.
Can't travel.
Yeah, you can't travel exactly. So it's all about telling you these things you can do, and so you have to play the game in the specific way that it is designed. But for like esports, you have a game where you basically can do anything.
Baked in.
Like the limits are baked in, so you can do anything at all within those baked in restrictions.
There's no he cheated, he jumped, over the boundary of the wall. It's like
there's no way.
Boundary.
Even if,
like a human
the
factor,
rules
right?
were
Yeah,
the
exactly.
same as like an actual like real life sport, it kind of gives the illusion that there's no rules because no one's actually telling you. You just you physically
it's
can't
already
do that.
literally
in
cannot
soccer, I can physically
disobey
go out
the
the court.
rules.
So
You can
it's
just
like,
leave.
You're out.
Yeah, you
in
can
a
just
video
like
game,
walk away.
You can't make your character just leave the stage.
Right. And we can also, aimbot and things like that. But that's
a whole other topic. That's
in
outside of the game itself.
absolutely.
People do drugs.
Exactly.
You could liken it to steroids, I guess.
But before we leave this topic, I did want to bring up something just to kind of play the devil's advocate about, you're saying if you're playing basketball, someone physically cannot become taller. Like, that's something they can't change, obviously, unless they get surgery, but we're talking about that. But do you think it's possible for someone to have, like, better, like, reaction time than someone else if they both, like, practice and have, like, the same diet, like, purely based off of, if they didn't have any, like, disabilities, obviously?
I think so.
I would say probably, there is probably, people have, I would imagine.
Probably a lot more, like, mellow between the differences.
Right.
Rather
Probably.
Than, like, obviously people's
I think
height.
it's something you can definitely like overcome or
Yes.
play around
Yeah.
a lot easier than in a sport. You can't
Mhm.
really play around being short. I mean, you can.
Imagine.
You could, but
It's harder than in say a fighting game where it's reaction versus reaction.
Mhm.
Sure, if you have a poor reaction time than them, they're generally going to have a bit of an advantage. But if you've got say better combos, so if you find the opening, you can capitalize on it more. If you've got better mind games, if you're conditioning them to act a certain way and then you're abusing that, right? Their reaction time is no longer as much of a factor. So there's a lot of other ways to best your opponent.
So like with two people that have never played that game before, there's less variables.
Yes.
Squidward Tennis Balls 1212 brings up 2 excellent points.
These Squidward tennis balls.
These Squidward Tennis
These
Balls.
was the one and only.
I would say that the only downside to things such as esports is that the console and the game could be expensive for people.
Sure.
Whereas playing a physical game like basketball or something is basically free.
Mhm.
And that vision also plays a big role in
Yeah,
this.
I mean,
And
you
so-
know,
I
there's
think is there
vision correction.
I'm pretty sure there's a blind Street Fighter player who
Yeah,
does pretty well.
I remember reading a story about that. He
blind.
He,
He plays
literally
completely
plays
off of like audio cues. He's got surround sound headphones that he can hear directionally what's going on the screen, and he does
And he
well.
does well.
Yeah, and so like vision, being blind, you can still play fighting games. And if you have impaired
Obviously
vision, if you're
harder,
like
but-
colorblind or you need glasses,
Yeah.
that's not a big deal.
Especially for colorblindness, there's a lot of games that have that baked into the
They have
options. where you can-
colorblindness accessibility.
and so I think as much as possible. I forgot about that, Caleb. But as much as possible, I think games are being made to be most as accessible as they can be. Obviously it is harder for someone who is blind to play it. I imagine that the blind Street Fighter
Had to work a lot harder
had to work
than-
a lot harder.
Yeah. Interesting that they decided. I know we're saying he, but I don't know what gender they were, but that they decided of all things, I want to be good at Street Fighter.
Yeah.
I want to be good at that with my disability. It's just very interesting.
It is.
They chose
I
that.
wonder. I would like to see. I'm curious if they were born blind, or if they had gone blind.
That's
If they
an
had
interesting
gone
point.
blind, they might have
I think
played
I'm-
before.
They
and
might have
really
played
liked that
before
game.
and be like, "Oh, I like Street Fighter."
That's a good point. I didn't think about that.
Something I wanted to ask you, Caleb, is that you obviously play a lot of games, and
Yeah.
you have I don't know what kind of colorblindness you have.
It's-
We did the
it's pretty
test
mild.
one time.
It's like it doesn't affect too much, but when it does, it's like, as far as like getting colors like mixed up, like it really doesn't matter because like let's say this is blue,
Yeah.
and I think it's green, which I obviously I don't, but it doesn't matter. I can still
Like,
see
what
the
does it
shape.
matter?
I
Yeah.
can still see my health bar, but it's only when like two colors are
Very
different
similar.
things
Oh,
and
okay.
they look the same. That's when that is like confusing, but that really doesn't happen to me.
Right.
So.
I remember like it happens like every now and again, but it really makes no difference. But what I want to say is, do you ever find yourself using the colorblind options?
No. I think honestly, I've tried turning on colorblind. Like for example, in The Witcher, there's a colorblind mode, and I think the game looks worse with colorblind mode. Like I like the colors better. Maybe that's just because that's what I'm used to seeing.
Right.
There's no colorblind mode for real life, so if I'm used to the way I see real life,
Then
if I
you-
switch to a
then-
colorblind
then
mode,
the
That's
game is
interesting.
just gonna look
'Cause
natural.
I remember
yeah, I want the game to look now.
playing Destiny and Destiny 2 when they added the colorblind modes. Everyone was like, "Oh my god, the colors look so much cooler if you turn on." I think it was like Eco Sepia. I don't remember what it was called, but like you turn on this colorblind mode and suddenly all these engrams look like really chartreuse and cool. And I want to use.
Are there
I'm gonna-
different types of colors?
There are like 4 or 5 different
Yeah.
modes now in Destiny. And I remember using it for a long time, and then somebody said, "Is that a purple engram?" I was like, "No, dude, that's like Perry."
Like Riot Games, which obviously made League.
Mm-hmm.
They have like for League itself, they have this feature called Clash, and right now they do it like every week or every 2 weeks. You can have like your team of like friends, and then like it averages everyone's rank, and then you can compete with other teams in like a bracket, like automatically, and then you get like in-game rewards. But something that it was really interesting to me is that in Legends of Runeterra, which is their card game, yeah, I know it's kind of funny, but
I think that was a
We got a
sub or
Pog.
something. Or a follow.
Manny has followed.
yeah, so
Bless his heart.
I think maybe I don't think we have the alert box over the other thing.
No,
No, we
oh,
do. It
for-
popped up for a second.
Oh, it did?
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, it was just very brief. Anyway, continue.
Oh yeah, so I think it's like every like like maybe like once a year or something. I don't know the exact details, but if you're like good enough and like you qualify for like the top 200 players, you can apply for this, like like giant 200 like team bracket, where you go against, and if you win, you get like a huge like prize pool. So no matter like where you're
And you
from
said that's
or
for their
anything
card
like
game or Legends of
for
Runeterra?
the card game.
Yeah.
So like no
Nice.
matter where you're from or like if you have a really bad PC or anything like that, as long as you have the skill, you can win the prize pool and they just give it to you.
I forgot to mention when Miss Tennis Balls brought up the accessibility issue of having to buy the console and stuff. I think that's kind of become less of an issue as time has gone on. A lot of people just own consoles or they know people who do, and I've heard of players going to their friend's house and exclusively playing there. They don't even own the console, and then they go to a tournament which traditionally has its own setups, right, where you don't have to bring your equipment to play, and they still perform relatively well despite not owning the game themselves. So there's that aspect of it. You can definitely get around the price point if you have to.
And the community is very like inclusive. I've never heard of any like exclusivity in like any fighting game communities. Like as long as you
teaching
have
people chess.
Oh yeah, except like in chess where there's like huge gatekeeping problems into like the upper echelons of
So
chess
stupid.
society. But like the fighting games, it's like it's so funny because like the one thing fighting game players want is for other people to play the game. Like that's it. Like we just want people to play the game. Like anybody you talk to, any fighting game player ever, you ask them like the one thing they like about, like they want a new, like they just want new players. Is that they just want people to play the game. Like they will invite people over. They're like, come play the game. I'll buy the game for you. Like fighting game players just want other people to play the goddamn game with them. That's it.
Well, because I mean, when a game loses its player base, it's really just hard to keep yourself playing. Like for instance, when Steam had its recent sale, we bought so many fighting games, and of all of them, we were like, we're gonna pick one and get really into it. Whichever one is the most fun, that's the one we're gonna play. And we settled on Guilty Gear Xrd, because it's just there's so much depth
fun.
there. It's
It's
so
an
much
amazing
fun.
game.
Incredible, like one of the best fighting games I've played, and I haven't even put that much time into it. Just like anyway. The problem with that game is it came out like what all the way back in I want to say 2014, 2012.
I don't know.
Like a long time ago.
8 years ago.
Shut up.
2012 was 8 years
Yeah.
ago.
But it came out back then, and there's no one online. Evan and I both have tried to go online and play Guilty Gear Xrd with other people, and I think
no
you said
matches.
you got matched with like two people who were both top ranks, and it was like, what do you do?
I played against like this one guy like all night, and he was like one of like the top ranked players like on the game, and I played with him for like 2 hours, and he just kept kicking my ass. And that's the thing is like there's no players, and like I would wait like 15 like to 20 minutes to play with like the same guy over and over again, where like instead of like Street Fighter, I can queue up and like even though I hate that game, I can queue up and find someone to play with that's exactly my skill level in like 3 seconds. You know,
It's more popular.
Street Fighter 5 looks so gross, and like I think like diminishing the difficulty of pulling off cool stuff really hurts it. For instance, the most iconic moment of any fighting game ever is the Daigo parries. Do you guys know what the Daigo parries are?
I have no idea.
So basically, I think it was a grand finals of EVO is in Street Fighter Third Strike, right? It's the final match between Justin Wong and Daigo, these two like astronomically huge players, and it's Chun-Li fighting Ken. Ken has like a sliver of health. Any stray hit will kill him. Even blocking will kill him because of chip damage, right?
Yeah.
And so Chun-Li's mid-screen got super, and Chun-Li uses the super, which is like
it's a 16-hit super.
16 hits, right? If he blocks a single one of them, he's dead. If he doesn't block, he's dead. He has to parry every single hit. So he has to hold back to block and then push forward for every single hit in time.
Perfect.
Yeah, so to parry in Street Fighter Third Strike, you have to press forward 3 frames, within 3 frames of getting hit by an attack. And, 3 frames is 3/60ths of a second. So you have to press forward in rhythm with Chun-Li's super within 3 frames 16 times.
Well, and on top of that, the first, like, I think 8 hits or something are all the same, or it's more than that, are all the same in a row. But then the last couple, she swings high, and you have to jump and parry mid-air, and then land and parry again. And the reason that moment is so iconic is because that is a difficult thing to do. Not just anybody off the street could just walk in and do that, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is, he did that, and then on top of that, after doing that, he
comboed
put
into
in
super.
he comboed into his super and won the match, won the tournament.
Yeah,
and while
like-
he was parrying, Justin Wong couldn't do anything, so he just sat there mashing
I
buttons
remember
to try
that.
and distract him. He's
You
just
can
like
find that
trying to
video
fuck him up.
online. He does the super and then he just starts slamming buttons because it's a valid strategy to try and distract your opponent.
Yeah.
So he
And it's
misses a
just
single
gonna
one.
do it,
yeah.
But the thing is, so he did that. He won that in Street Fighter V. In order to parry that exact same super as Ken, there are dedicated like 2 buttons for parry. You can do like a maramba beat, like da 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 da.
Or you can just
da, da,
mash it.
da, or you can just mash it.
Mash it. It
And it'll
doesn't
parry
matter.
it. As long as you're pressing the button while it's happening, you parry it. And so I feel like it's impossible to replicate a moment of that magnitude
You can't do cool
because
shit.
it's too accessible. You know, and I think that sucks that exclusivity of that nature is a thing. But the thing is, like, he worked to do that. He worked to get that good, and that's what made that moment amazing and made it history.
I think there's also a difference too. You're saying, that it's the accessibility that's the problem. I think that it's different in that you can have the game still be accessible, but you can have a high skill ceiling.
Yes.
And then have it.
I think it's
have
important to
you
have a
can
low
have
skill floor and a high skill
low
ceiling
skill floor, high
simultaneously.
skill ceiling, and then so new players can get in, have a good time, and then as you learn more, you can get better and better and do these cooler things. But to be able to do the coolest thing right off the bat,
Yeah, something
It's not cool.
I want to bring up, and I know why they did this because I watched a Core video about why they did this.
Core is so
Core
good.
is amazing. If you
All your
have
fighting
any
game
interest
needs.
in fighting games or the community, look up Core A Gaming on YouTube. Amazing. But he brings up is that so the fighting games are great for advertisers. Like fighting games make so much money off of ads because fighting games are great to watch. Like you guys aren't like naturally fighting. Like you don't like
Yeah.
you
Sometimes
wouldn't
I
call
watch
yourself
them,
a
yeah,
fighting
like,
game.
no.
But like like any fighting game, no matter what, if you see one, you kind of understand what's going on. There's 2 guys and they're
Yeah.
hitting each other and they've got health bars that go down, and you're like, oh, they're hitting each other. Oh, that's
It's
sick.
entertaining.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I'll admit
like
that.
no matter what,
Yeah.
you could literally pull some random person off the street and have them watch a fighting game, and they could kind of get what's on. Like
Yeah,
it looks
before-
cool,
Yeah.
and go.
Before I played League, if I saw like gameplay of League, I was like, "What the hell is
Yeah,
going
exactly.
on?"
Yeah,
This is
exactly.
like a mess.
So there's a little a barrier to like watching that, but for fighting games there really is no barrier. Anyone can watch it, and so in Street Fighter V, I remember one of the developers was talking about how they want to make their game more like they want like anybody to be the next Daigo. So they made the parry button. You can just mash it instead of having to do like this insanely complicated tech, so that advertisers would be able to they would make a lot of money off of ads because their game looks cool, and so it's like a
and I can
unfortunate side effect.
Yeah, and I can
Super
absolutely understand
capitalism.
saying that. Oh, we want anybody to be able to be Daigo. That's not a bad thing to say, but when you
Make
know
it too easy. That
the
takes
reason-
away. It's like Syndrome. When everyone's super, no one will be.
yeah, when everyone's super,
Super.
no one will be. That is Daigo is cool because what he did was impossible.
He was. Super.
It was what?
He was super.
He was super.
He was super.
Precisely.
He was Mr. Incredible.
I personally don't. Fighting games are fine. You know me. They're fine. I enjoy them.
Fine
I
enough.
really like Third Strike, but that's about it. In Smash Bros. But I don't really care. But like the Daigo parry, I'm like, that is the coolest.
Gives me chills
thing.
every
It is
time.
cool.
You watch it and the crowd's like, oh, like they just lose it more and more as like he keeps going.
It's the
Yeah.
coolest thing, and it's just but it's cool again because what he did was impossible, and so to make it not impossible is to just take away everything that's cool about it. But
Yeah. So we've been on that for a while. Let's move on just a little bit. Let's see.
You want to move on to casual stuff or?
I think we should do like one more bit on esports. This wouldn't apply to everyone. I don't know if like you say you have. Let's talk about our favorite players and what makes our favorite esport appealing to us. What do we look for in a game to say that's what I want to like watch? That's what I want to compete in. Something like that, and players obviously that we follow and we find really really impressive and that we want to play like.
Want to start us off?
Sure. For me, in a not a fighting game, sorry. In a competitive game, I really look for a high skill ceiling, even though inevitably I will almost never reach that. I get burnt out too quick, generally speaking. But I think it's like the impressive stuff that you can do when it's difficult to do and it looks cool, and it's obvious that two players are really going head to head, and it's the players fighting or playing against each other, not, you know, their characters or something, or like a bad matchup thing, something like that. Not the works, right? I think that kind of player interaction and that kind of connection to a player is really what keeps me involved and enthralled with esports.
I'm gonna be reflecting.
Jenny, how do you feel? Like, what like when you
As a league player,
do you like keep up with the competitive scene at all?
I don't like super watch it, but it just like when I first started playing League, you know, obviously like my hero or whatever was like, you know, Faker, which is considered the greatest player, or was at least at the time. But he was able to do so many cool things with like so many cool champs, and there were iconic moments like, you know, that one, the guy that you just mentioned. I'm sorry,
Like,
about his name.
it's basically
Daigo?
Yeah.
but like
Yeah.
basically like the same thing. Like the Daigo parry of League is like the Faker moment. Like
Yeah, exactly,
Where he
yeah,
does like the Z outplay.
Yeah,
I remember,
that
like,
one is the most iconic. And then that guy's like career was like ruined after that.
It's the
Got
same thing.
destroyed.
Like you know, it's that same thing that sends
Exactly,
chills down
it's
my
that
spine.
feeling.
For me, the thing in League that sends chills down my spine was C9 Balls, their top laner, playing Darius. And getting a pentadunk.
Oh
in,
yeah, that one was fun.
In like literally, it was like match point, like their last game, and like they won, and they won the game with a pentadunk,
Yeah,
and they used
exactly.
the dunk master skin, and they got like literally like all 5 kills were a dunk. And I remember he's like the announcer is like. He's like, you gotta kill, double kill,
Yeah.
triple kill, and he just like screams like pentakill, and I just remember like chills going down my spine. I was like, that is the sickest fucking thing I've ever
And,
seen. In
yeah,
my
so
life.
Darius
Wombo
is
combo,
like,
dude.
yeah.
That ain't Falco. Wombo combo.
Oh,
So
I've
cool.
heard that so many
It's
times.
Right,
And that's
I didn't
iconic
even know it was from
outside of Smash.
I didn't know it was from
Oh
Smash.
really?
Yeah, it's
Oh, interesting.
Smash doubles tourney. I don't remember who the players are, but it's like they take out one of the opposing team's players, and so it's a 2-on-1 of like Falco and Captain Falcon fighting, I think, Falco. And they're like so in sync with each other, the two players on the same team, that one of them grabs him, tosses him up, the other like stomps him down, grabs him, tosses him up, and they're going like
It's
back and
basically
forth.
like ping ponging
Yeah.
this
And
guy back
the
and
announcers
forth.
are just like, oh my god, that ain't Falco, wombo combo, wombo combo, and then like
That's funny.
the Falco grabs him again, the Falcon runs across the stage, the Falco throws him forward into the Falcon's reverse like knee,
Yeah.
killing. Dude, it was the sickest thing. Like the fact that you have to rely on somebody else to be perfectly in position, and you have to know what they're thinking, like all these things. There's so many layers to it.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Definitely shit.
Funny story. We at the restaurant we saw this guy. He was wearing a Faker jacket, and we're like,
Oh,
is that? And we looked it up. This guy is like a middle-aged guy,
White man.
Yeah, white. And we're like, oh, is that? And then we look at a picture of Faker, and it's like, oh, no, that's not him.
Disappointing.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's kind of like what you were saying. It's like I want to like be able to replicate what the guy did, because the guy like, you know, spends like a ton of time in the game, and like his mechanics with like, you know, each different champion is just like so like unique. And the thing with League is like not only the champions, like you have to know like how to play with like
I'm sure there are tons
your
of matchups.
teammates.
Like how many champs are there?
There's like 130 something.
Right.
We have to
And
know-
each
we
one of
think we
those
have
is
to
a
know a lot of
matchup.
matchups for Smash.
Yeah.
And then think about it, like there's only like 30 like viable competitive like champions, right?
Is Fizz still viable?
Hmm?
Is Fizz still
Do we like
viable?
Fizz?
Not in competitive.
Damn
But
it!
see, but see, even though there's only 30
two
viable,
people.
30 that are competitively viable, excuse me, you still have to be ready for those other ones though. Because what if somebody's like,
Yeah,
oh,
exactly.
they're all expecting these 30, I'm gonna pull out number 147.
Exactly. No, yeah, there's been like so many like, you know, off meta picks
Yeah.
that like have won the game, which is
Sure.
like super rare.
I think subverting
But,
the meta is a really interesting
it's-
thing. Like Smash Melee is a really good one to look at for that, because for the longest time, for like a decade, right? A decade and a half even, I think. Yoshi was like bottom tier, and top tier was exclusively Fox, and then like Falco, Captain Falcon, Peach, Marth, right? And then he just, like, some random guy was like, I'm gonna play Yoshi, and he figured out a particular way to play Yoshi, and Yoshi jumped up like 4 tiers because this
Just because
one
one
guy
guy.
Yeah.
started performing with Yoshi. He jumped up like 4 tiers a decade and a half after the game has come out. And same thing happened with Jigglypuff and Hungrybox, which is like much more iconic. He just brought this bottom tier character and figured out, oh, I'm really good at running away with this character. I'm gonna get a little damage and just play keep away and like time everyone out. And everyone hated him, but it was something you had to learn how to deal with, or he was gonna keep winning tournaments with it.
No, yeah. So what I like about like, you know, Smash and like League in that aspect that there's like a bunch of different characters and like tiers and stuff like that is that if you can figure out like your own new strategy, then you can still like win games.
You can
and, like,
shift it.
Exactly, you can shift the meta yourself.
And I think that's kind of like a problem with that being a meta like that is that people see like, oh, I want to get into League, I'm going to look up how to play Riven and then just do exactly like that in every game I play. And then to a certain point that works a little bit, you get good enough at doing that and you perform okay, but it's hard to really progress past a certain point when you're not playing as yourself, you're playing as a guide.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Do you find it annoying when, like, for example, I think this was a couple of years ago, but for like a week or two, funneling was like a really big strat, and then they didn't really patch it, but like they nerfed it.
They fixed a lot.
Do you find that annoying if they like nerf stuff that people like creatively come up with?
It was okay. So to give like a little bit of context, it's kind of you guys don't know like League terminology, but I'll try to explain.
I can we'll translate.
Okay,
I'll
you'll
be
be my
translator.
translator. So it's basically when the mid laner and the jungler play. One is a really hyper carry, like Master Yi, like in the jungle. And then the other one is like a healer.
Basically, like you have like mid lane is like you have like two people that are like damage dealers, right? So in the strategy, you have one of them actually take a backseat and they play like a support or like they're like supportive, like they heal or they cast buffs.
The mid lane.
And so instead of taking all the like experience and the gold, which is stuff you need in League because experience makes your champion stronger and gold gives you money to buy things, you don't take those things and you instead give it to your jungler, which is a guy who like runs around the map, and he takes it all, and he gets like super giga strong.
And so like the healer has like for like the most popular support champion for that specific matter, like makes both of the champions like invincible, and with like a super giga strong champion like that, you'll just like destroy everyone.
You probably have two supports anyways at that point because your mid lane's a support and you have your actual
and
support.
you usually already have support.
And so basically then you just double stack support and you
Funnel
funnel
one guy.
everything.
You funnel
into-
somebody in the map, or the jungler,
And you just
which is like a
deals
hyper
down.
carry. Yeah, and that specific way was like it was a viable strategy, but it was like super boring and annoying for like everyone.
Right.
Because I'm pretty sure the people that did it didn't even have fun.
Yeah, I mean, you're purposefully not playing the game
Exactly. Yeah.
as much as you would in order to let one guy get stronger.
But they fixed it eventually, so
Damn.
it's no longer a thing.
And how'd they fix that?
Well, they fixed so if the jungler has like the most like experience in gold, you get like a debuff. So you like if you take the lane minions, you get less gold and stuff like that, and you like get like less XP and stuff like that. So.
Interesting.
I thought of something I wanted to bring up, and I thought this applies to actually fighting games and League, and I want you to like tell me if this sounds correct for like in League, because I know it's correct in terms of like Smash, and it's we were talking about like low tiers and high tiers, and like how like certain characters are good. You said like 30 characters out of like the 140 or whatever are like competitively viable, right? And like that same sort of thing is like with I think Smash Ultimate's really well balanced, but like say for Melee there's like 5 viable characters out of like the cast of like 20, right?
Kind of lame.
But there's this phenomenon that you can experience in games with different characters where some are better and some are worse, is that they fall into a tier list, but there's this sort of auto balancing thing that happens because when you have a lot of good characters, most people play the good characters, right? Like, say, for League, like, you have those 30 champions, so people practice those 30 champions. Same thing with Smash, like, we have a lot of top tiers, so people play a lot of those top tiers more so than the shittier characters. And then what we see happening is that people learn those matchups. People play against the really good characters a lot, and they learn how to play against the really good characters and become really good at those matchups, right? But if you play a shittier character, even though your character is maybe like objectively less good than another character,
they won't know how to fight
they don't have the matchup experience, and therefore it balances itself out. So if you play like a poopy ass low tier that nobody plays, and you play against someone in tournament, and that guy has never played against your character before, you can get him with the gobbledygook cheese, and like absolutely like demolish him. One thing I think of for League is I remember like someone picked Starner. Like it was like some match, like I really don't know names, but like there was some like competitive match. It was like at like Worlds or something. And someone picked Skarner. I remember Skarner was ass at the time, but he has this ability where he can grab someone from the enemy team and he can pull them, like, and he can drag them around. And I just remember he went wild, like he just went absolutely apeshit on this character that people thought was ass. And so, you know, like it tier lists kind of do have this auto balancing thing that makes it like very interesting to play.
Well, it's super like niche because you know the lower tier characters are low tier for like a reason, right? So a lot of the times they can't perform. I mean, you have the element of surprise, but I feel like for like Smash or League, like your opponent can adapt at that point.
Right.
Well, like what your like niche
it's
strategy.
adapt or die.
Sometimes,
Exactly.
yeah. Sometimes, and if you're not able to, well,
Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
it is, yeah.
But
All right, well, it's been a great time talking about esports. That's going to be, the first half to 3/4 of our show here. We're going to move on a little bit to a more casual section. To start things off, just, what have you guys been playing recently and what games you've been on your mind,
Go on. Start.
I've been playing a lot of RPGs. I played Omori last week. If anyone out there listening is a fan of Earthbound, Mother, Undertale, I recommend checking out Omori, but be warned, it gets way darker than any of those games ever do. There is like a graphic content warning at the beginning for like suicide and depression and self-harm.
Doki Doki.
It's worse than that, man. It's
It's
really,
worse than Doki
really
Doki.
good. I have never had a game impact me as much as Omori has, at least immediately.
Like storytelling, or
Yeah, I think the characters were really fantastic. Like, it was just enjoyable to see them, like, talk to each other, and, like, the art was really, really good. Because you would go from this, like, pixel art, Mother 3 looking graphics, SNES style in RPG Maker, and then you talk to a mirror, and it would cut to this hand-drawn animation of you and your friends in this mirror, and it would say, a floating mirror, your friends are smiling warmly behind you. Just be this section of really high-quality animation. And that's how battles looked, right? Enemy sprites were these really well-animated things. Character animations were really good. The mechanics for the battle were different than anything I've ever played before, and I thought it was the most fun I've had with RPG combat in a long time, and I've played a lot of RPGs.
So it was a 2D game?
Yeah.
So is it like turn-based? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
But there was a lot of interesting stuff that went with that. Like, for instance, when you attack, you have an energy bar at the bottom, and you can choose to spend 3 energy to do a follow-up, wherein, like, say one guy attacks by throwing a ball at the opponent, you follow up by passing the ball to one of your teammates, right? If you pass it to one guy, you dunk on all foes. If you pass it to another, she hits a home run, and it randomly does huge damage to one enemy, like, stuff like that. Or you can save all the energy and do a massive, like, all-out attack on one character. And it's just, like, the storytelling was great, the writing was great, the music was great, everything about it, like, fantastic. I was honestly considering putting it in my top 3 at the beginning, but since I only played through it last week, I want to give it some more time to, like,
Cool down.
sit in my brain a little bit before I make any drastic decisions. But that's definitely been on my mind a lot, as well as, of course, fighting games like Guilty Gear and Street Fighter, especially Guilty Gear Strive. But
Coming out soon.
Whew,
Soon.
please. Not soon enough.
Yeah, April. That's gonna revive the FGC. Like
I hope
people
so,
are
dude.
sleeping, but that game is going to have a rollback. Holy shit.
What are you, Avery?
Avery?
well, as Johnny pointed out before, I have been playing a lot of Binding of Isaac.
Okay.
Recently.
Why is
just
he
'cause-
playing a lot of Binding of Isaac?
Tell
Well,
us,
because
tell us.
for 2 reasons. I want to get I want to unlock everything.
Yeah,
I like
fair,
doing it.
that's
I
fair.
like getting.
Completionist over here.
I like completing things, but I only like completing games that have tracked collectibles and things.
Right, like you can tell you how many.
I don't want to
like,
get all the Korok seeds in Breath
Yeah,
of the Wild.
well, I don't know. That one's
They're
almost
tracked, but it's like tracking
tracked,
light.
but it's also tracking light, and the reward is 0. It's nothing, and so because of that, I'm like, I don't even care. I got like 500 and I stopped. But there's new Binding of Isaac DLC coming out in March, and it looks really cool. Basically, they said it's about as close as to a sequel as we'll ever get. So
I was playing like Binding of Isaac for like a little bit. I don't know if you saw me. It was like a while ago,
I think
like
I-
2
yeah.
weeks or something like that. But yeah, no, it was really fun. But I would recommend Hades if you're into that type of
I was
game.
gonna say
I
you
played
played
it, yeah.
I keep looking at Hades and I'm like, I want
I was
to.
skeptical at first. No, trust me. But the story is really good.
Okay.
Character
like-
interactions look good.
Yeah.
Because I keep looking at it and I'm like, I want more like dungeon crawler random,
Yeah.
but I didn't like the way the combat looked.
It's amazing.
It's really
It's
good.
Hades.
Really
you like.
Like
Yeah,
I'm in
I
the
beat it a
same
couple
boat as
times.
you, Avery, where I like on the surface don't like what I see necessarily.
Yeah, that's how it was.
But
It-
everyone that I have seen play it has just had glowing
That's-
reviews. Like
yeah.
no one has disliked the
I,
game even a
I
little
have
bit.
to say, give it a chance,
Okay.
absolutely, because it's
I
it's
figured.
if you like Binding of Isaac, you'll love this game. The character interactions, the gameplay.
I saw like it's beautiful
amazing.
looking. Absolutely.
Yeah, so every time like you beat it, you have a reason to beat it again.
Yeah.
And like
I think the framework is really interesting too.
Mhm.
How like you're in hell, obviously, as Hades' son, but it's not like other roguelikes where you die and there's not really a reason why you respawn.
Yeah.
You die and you go back to the beginning of hell where you're reborn out of the blood pit or whatever, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, of course. But I really like how it's a full world in that you don't just die and the game's like, all right, well, game over, try again.
Yeah.
There's like consequences to that. Like you actually see the repercussions of losing firsthand, and you see when you beat a boss, they like go back to whatever the starting area is, and you can go interact with them again. And I think
Yeah.
that's really interesting too.
Yeah.
yeah, no, I was
The
gonna
world
say
seems
the,
really complete.
Yeah, no. So when I beat it, like again, like I said, it gives you a reason to beat it again. Like following the story, I think I beat it, a couple times, and each time, you're still getting like new lines from like the gods and
Yeah.
stuff like that. But no, it's super awesome.
The
Definitely recommend it.
characters are absolutely like so cool. I remember I watched this video. It was just like a short video about how the first boss of the game, Meg, she's like a siren, I think. She's like this demon and she's like the first boss, but she's like kind of one of your friends, but she's like kind of a bitch to you sometimes. And if you beat her, she will complain that you only beat her because like you can get like points and like spend like get more speed or more damage
right.
or like an extra more health or something, and then she will complain about how you used all these power-ups to beat her,
Right.
Like when you see her back at base, because it's so funny because you beat her and then you can see her back at base like once you
Right,
it's
once
like
you-
I was like, hey, how's it going?
Hey.
I think the main character's name is Zagreus. And if on the next one you remove all of your power-ups and go back, she will comment about how you came back without all your power-ups. So it's just like the world building in that game is insane.
Well, it's really
Right.
thorough. It's one of those games. It seems like one of those games where you're like, so she's commenting on my power ups. Well, what if I go back and beat her without the power ups? I wonder if she won't have different dialogue
Right.
for that. I bet.
Right.
But then she does.
And see,
Yeah.
that
And
type of
that's
stuff.
really cool. That's the little stuff.
It's
the little stuff,
really the
yeah.
little stuff that matters. It's such a big deal. But I think now is the game like is it because Binding of Isaac is very you get all these items. It's a very combination. Like I get this one, but it works well with this one, but it doesn't work well
Yes.
with this one. Is that happening in Hades?
Yeah, it's pretty much like that. So you can like as you go, you can unlock more weapons and
Yeah.
stuff. And each of the gods will give you like different things. Like Poseidon gives you like knockback away from your
Right.
abilities, and like Artemis gives you like extra crit damage and stuff like
Sure,
that.
sure,
so
sure.
some weapons will you can make specific builds for
Right, and
things.
space, and you can
that work
seek
with
out
each
certain
other.
The
things.
gods
Exactly.
have themes, right? So like what's the god of war will give you like
Ares?
it's the girl, I don't remember, but she gives you like invulnerability on your moves, and then like Poseidon gives you knockback, and
Zeus gives you like chain damage from
and then
lightning.
what's the love one?
Aphrodite.
Aphrodite will give you like charm on like enemies and like healing. So it's like it like they have builds, and what's really cool, I didn't play a whole lot, so maybe you can speak on this more, but it's the weapons. So like every time you start a run, you get to choose which weapon you take with you, because they're like ancient like god weapon relics
Yeah,
or whatever.
sure.
And you have like a shield, a bow, a sword, hammer, like fists, and then you get and you get to like choose which one to take out with you, and they all interact with like the abilities that the gods give you
differently.
even
Well, I think
more.
it's really interesting how like the loot is structured throughout the playthroughs. Because one thing that I've seen a lot in other roguelikes like Binding of Isaac is oh, I got a bad first drop, scuffed run, I'm starting over. That doesn't really happen in Hades because when you win an encounter or win a room or whatever, you have options, right?
Yeah.
It says in this room there's going to be this type of treasure. It doesn't tell you specifically what it is, but it's going to be this type. Or you can go over here and get this type. And I think that's like a natural evolution of like encouraging player choice even further and letting you play your way, but still including that, legacy of RNG a little bit.
Right, which I think for that type of thing is important. For Binding of Isaac, pretty much, if you get stuck with something bad, it's like, oh, gotta reset.
What is it? I remember this one I always watch like Binding of Isaac stream. It's like Guppy something that it just like ruins the
Guppy's
run.
head is good.
It's like one of the Guppy parts because like there's like
There's-
Guppy's tail.
There's
and, like,
one of them. There's there's Guppy's body, or like I think it's just Guppy, and it gives you 9 lives, but it takes away all your health but 1.
I just remember like some streamer, like I remember him playing and he like got Guppy's like tail or something and he's like restart. Like it's so trash. I can't play with this.
Are you talking, when you say runs, you mean like speed runs or just
so
like the
so
whole
in
game?
Binding of Isaac, you know, like roguelikes and roguelites, like you do like runs, so you'll like play through and then you'll die and then you start back at the beginning and you play through, and like that's how the gameplay loop. It's not like Skyrim where like if you die it reloads a save. No. You know, like roguelike games are all about permadeath and RNG, you know. So a run is like you go through and like
because Binding of Isaac basically everything is randomly generated pretty much all the time, and so like you start the game, you have your room layout, you go do all your stuff, you get a randomly generated item, you fight a randomly generated boss that it picks from like a pool of bosses.
There's no save points.
There's no save points. I mean, if you leave, like if you say exit game, you can come back to it, but if you die, there's no save.
You start from the beginning.
Yeah, you start from the beginning.
Have you ever played any like roguelikes or roguelikes?
Dark Souls?
No. Because you save progress, you get items that you like, you know, save. Even if you die, you still have the item. In roguelikes and roguelites, you lose everything when you die.
You straight up start over.
Like that's the whole point of the game, is that the gameplay loop is not about getting stuff, it's about getting better. And there's a distinction to be made between roguelikes and roguelites. The T and the K different. Roguelikes are very hard to find nowadays. Most games are falling into the category of roguelites, because roguelikes mean you get nothing, absolutely nothing from completing a run. Whereas in like Binding of Isaac or Hades, you get like small points that you can, or like new weapons to play with. Like you get small upgrades to your character.
Basically,
or just more options. Like,
right.
Yeah, more options
new ways
to
to
be.
play.
So that's why most games are considered roguelites instead of like.
One of my favorite aspects of these types of games is the fact that oftentimes it's baked into the game where you can get combinations that make you incredibly powerful. Like you're like, I am just a god.
Yeah.
And like you feel like it's broken, but it's pretty much completely intentional.
Oh yeah.
You know, and I think that's a very important thing in a game to sometimes, you know, make the player feel like, you know, oh, I'm destroying, I'm crazy right now, and the developer's like, yeah, I know.
No, yeah, you can do that. Like I said in Hades.
It's like the Chad meme. It's like I'm so crazy at this game. It's like I know.
I know. I designed it that way. But
no, like the item interactions and like the boons is what they call them. It's like you can make so many combinations.
Well, then I will have to check it out because like again, I had looked at it and like the gameplay, I had seen like the battling, and I'm like, But if you guys are like, oh, it's really good, I might just.
And there is progression, you know. You can get points, keys, stuff like that to unlock more things.
There's challenge runs after the fact, right?
Yeah, so there is an end game.
Yeah.
Where it gives you even more stuff. So.
Absolutely, which I like.
Cool. Anything else you want to cover, or do you want to?
Yeah, so we were talking about just what games you've been playing, what's on your mind. That was a cool discussion. But only us have gone so far.
Caleb.
You fine gentlemen.
I just finished Persona 4 and it was a blast.
Persona 4 Golden.
Never played it.
Persona 4 Golden. Yeah. Because it just came out on PC. But I had previously obviously played Persona 5 and then Royal after 5. Actually, the same day I finished 5, I started Persona 5 Royal.
Came over to my house on the day of release. He finished, fought the final boss, did the end game, and then as soon as he finished, literally booted up the next one.
Made it by the skin of your teeth.
So I got a total of almost 400 hours of Persona 5 content within the 3 weeks that spanned it or whatever. Anyways, but after that I was kind of sad. Like, oh man, that was such a good game. Like, I'm never going to be able to experience like that again. I didn't really think about like, oh, there's Persona 4. I guess I just went over my head. But after playing Persona 4, I was like, this is awesome. Like, it's pretty much the same exact feeling I had while playing Persona 5, but just again, and it was like super sick that I got to experience that again, and I had a lot of fun with it. But now that I have Persona Brain, I'm actually kind of looking forward to Persona 5 Scramble or
Strikers.
It's a localization thing. In Japanese, it's Scramble, and America, it's Strikers.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. So.
And you said that like you actually ended up liking 4 more than 5.
Yeah, I still to this day I'm not like sure. It's either I liked it more or like.
A little bit of Undertale again, and then I was like, this still isn't quite what I want. It's not enough of that RPG experience. It's unique. It's not what I'm looking for, but it's great. It's just not what I'm looking for. And then I found Mori, actually, because
That's so
Evan
funny. I
messaged
messaged
me,
you. I was like, hey, this game seems like something you would like.
and I felt
So start working on the emulator. All right. Anything else you want to add?
No, that's pretty much it.
All right,
I
cool.
do-
Johnny? What? Go ahead.
I want to kind of continue off of what Nathan said with eliciting a feeling from certain games. Trying to recapture that. I think it's really interesting. Like you had mentioned Undertale, and I was just thinking while Cable was kind of talking about it. Man, I want another game that I wish I could play Undertale again for the first time. Is kind of what I'm trying to say. And there's a lot of games I feel that way about. I mean, I wish I could play Hollow Knight again for the first time. I think that experience was amazing. Or Half-Life Alyx, I think, was a great one. And playing it again will probably never be the same. I think it's interesting, too. You look at remasters or games that are inspired by other games. Like you were saying, there's nothing really you found for Earthbound.
nothing that matches the quality.
Nothing that matches the quality, and there's a lot of games that are inspired by and fan games and things like Undertale is pretty close, but
It's an Earthbound inspired game. But it has a lot of its own identity, which is fantastic. I think
Which is
Undertale
good.
is an amazing game that deserves all of its praise and then some. But it wasn't quite what I was looking for.
But I think that is the key, though. That's probably why Undertale is so successful, is that it's its own unique thing still. Whereas I was thinking, the Outer Worlds, right? When I play that, I'm like, man,
the
Fallout.
That's like the
Fallout
Fallout
one.
the
yeah.
Obsidian
Yeah.
Obsidian's RPG, right? And I was like, I was playing it, and I'm like, this is fine. It's good. There's some good stuff in here, but I wish this was Fallout. I'm
It's
sorry.
just not the same
I
feeling.
just wish
I
this was
getcha.
New Vegas, or like and then you look at stuff like Ukulele compared to Banjo Kazooie.
God.
Ukulele has some other problems going on, obviously, but it's like this just isn't good. Or some of the
Mighty Number 9.
Mighty Number 9,
Especially the new Pokemon. Sword and Shield
Pokemon Sword and
absolutely
Shield.
astronomically fails to capture the magic of Pokemon.
Even the Gen 6 remakes of Ruby and Sapphire,
Better example,
I play them and I'm like, these are objectively fine. They are totally fine. There's nothing wrong with them per se. It has.
But when would you play that over Emerald?
Exactly. Emerald just has such a specific feeling, and partially due to nostalgia for me, but I
don't
just
know,
feel
though.
that it didn't recapture it in a way.
I think it was too close to the new style Game Freak is going for of keeping you on a track. You play the game our way, not your way.
Sure.
Whereas Emerald and earlier Pokemon games, I think everything pretty much up until Black and White 2 was very much you kind of have to follow this path, but there is some freedom. There's some leeway. Like for instance, I learned recently. I think you learned recently too.
I didn't know
that Fire Red and Leaf Green, which are the first Kanto remakes, you can technically beat all the gyms in I think it's 64 different orders or some shit like that.
I don't.
Really?
But and then I thought about it though. Don't you have to get the HMs from the leaders?
Yeah, but it's like a weird limited. You
so-
have to beat a certain one to go to a certain one, and that opens up a new combination and a new set
so
of
you
routes.
can do basically other.
But you can, you're not supposed to, and the levels will not agree with you if you do it that way. But you can beat the gyms in a billion different orders, and I think that's really cool. That's why people still love Kanto, and that's what they fail to recapture every time they remake Kanto, all the
Isn't that
time.
kinda like the Rockstar mission design.
Oh
syndrome?
yes, I
Oh,
saw.
yeah,
It's like
the-
go
Naked
to this
Jakey.
and go to
Naked
this and
Jakey's
this.
his
Yeah.
video.
It's
Excellent.
about
Yeah.
having Rockstar. Rockstar makes amazing games. Don't get me
Sure.
wrong. They absolutely kill it with Red Dead, GTA, whatever others.
Honestly, some of the best parts about their game is just how polished they are.
They are really polished. But the thing is with Rockstar's mission, and this is specifically closed brackets. What I'm talking about is mission design.
Yeah.
When they make a mission, they want you to play that mission exactly as they
Which is-
intended,
well-
with no leeway whatsoever.
And his example in the video was, of course, the mission where it's there's this dude sitting on the steps of a saloon, right? And he
Red
says,
Dead?
I wish, in Red Dead, I wish I had a harmonica. I really wish I had a harmonica. And you're like, oh, I saw a dude with a harmonica 3 houses ago. I'll just go over there, ask, and use my charm skills, and or shoot him and take it. And, there's no options.
Yeah.
There is no way to get the harmonica from that guy.
I mean-
the only way to do it is to progress the story exactly how they want until they're you finish a scripted event and they say, good job, partner, here's your harmonica.
You gotta think of
yeah.
Rockstar's games are GTA 5 and Red Dead. They're not RPGs. It's more of a cinematic storytelling, almost like The Last of Us, but not quite that on rails. but like it's not an RPG.
The thing is with that,
It has
like,
RPG
I think,
elements,
like, it
but it's
hasn't
more of
always
a
been that way,
cinematic game.
I guess.
I think that is a great point from Caleb, though. I mean, like you have to kind of realize that's not what it is.
Like
too.
there's no stats in GTA.
but
Sure.
the thing is, that's what
I
it's
mean, there
progressed
is,
to.
but-
I was in that same video that Nikki Jakey made. I think he references GTA 4, where there's a mission where you're supposed to go like shoot this guy, like do a big. What's intended is that you do a big car chase and you shoot him down while he's like leaving this building, right? But if you look at the map before you like start the mission, it's like, oh, his car's parked on 3rd Street and 42nd. Okay, cool. And you walk over there, you put a bomb on the car, and you can completely do it your own way. He gets in the car and you just beep. That's an option. It's not what they intended, but you can do it that way for the same result. And I think that just like kind of sandboxy experience is what I kind of want out of GTA and Red Dead a little bit more.
It makes you curious if that being an option was just an oversight of them forgetting to patch that part.
Yeah.
They probably wanted to.
Probably, but I think that is probably like when you're talking about that element of being able to do things the way you want with this. You know, you okay, here's your mission, go do it, but do it any way you want. That is one of the most powerful design elements in Breath of the Wild.
I was about to say,
That's Metal Gear
It is
Solid 5.
It is amazing in that you can. I mean, you can. In the game, it is an option, a viable option for you to solve puzzles in shrines where the puzzle requires you basically, there's metal cubes and you gotta move them, you gotta move the metal cubes to complete a circuit, right? But if you're like, oh, I don't want to move the metal cubes, like it's up there and I can't get it, right? You can drop all your metal gear on the ground and shove it around and that completes the circuit. And it solves the puzzle. And it works.
With your own shit. And one of my, I love what you brought up. One of my favorite things in Breath of the Wild was, I would, like, when I would walk into a shrine, my first thing was not, how do I solve this puzzle? It's, how can I break this puzzle? I love doing that.
There's,
There's like the ones where you get the wall, you put a metal plate on the wall, you stand on a metal plate with a bomb underneath it, and then you blow up the bomb.
You can just do bomb jumping, which is, because in Breath of the Wild you have 2 bombs that you can detonate separately. You have a square bomb and a circle bomb. You can jump up, drop the circle bomb, wait like a 1 frame, drop the square bomb, detonate the circle bomb, it'll hit the square bomb, hit you, and then send you flying. So if there's like a gate like at the end of the level, you literally can just, there's like this whole big puzzle, boop, just fly in. And one of my favorite experiences, and I figured this shit out all on my own, it was such an amazing player moment, was there was this puzzle where you have to use the motion controls on the Switch, and there's a ball that drops down into, I know, everyone kind of figures it out.
Good.
There's a ball that drops down,
into a
and you
maze.
need to get it to Link. Link is like standing at the bottom, and there is a maze, and the ball drops into the maze, and you kind of have to use the motion controls to guide the ball through the maze and drop it out. And it's a well designed puzzle,
hard. It's not,
and it's hard to do. Like it wouldn't be an easy thing. But the oversight is that the bottom is flat, and if you use the motion controls to turn the puzzle over, the bottom is completely flat. The ball drops onto it and just rolls down to Link.
Physically turn your
You
controller
literally turn your
upside
controller
down.
upside down like that, and it solves the puzzle. And it's just such an amazing
But Breath of the
feeling.
Wild takes it even further. It's not just the puzzles; it's the battles. It's everything. It is pretty much everything in Breath of the Wild is you can solve in the way that you want. You see someone in the distance.
There's a million ways
You
to
see a
approach
camp,
anything.
and then there's like you see a boulder, and you're like, oh, I could use the boulder. But then there's bombs, and there's this, and there's that, and you're like, I could do one of like 20 million different things here.
It's raining and lightning's gonna strike, and I've got a metal boomerang, so I
you
can
can
throw my
throw the
boomerang
boomerang.
right as it starts sparking, and it's gonna zap right on the enemy, and then I can catch it and do it again.
I think
I can throw my boomerang and catch it with magnesis and lightning striking it, and it's a spinning blade of death.
And yet, so it is such a complicated like concoction of a web of mechanics. However, at first glance, it is so simple, and I think that's the trick.
You can go through the whole game literally
Not doing it,
magneting a metal box and smacking all the enemies. You can any boss you want, just magnet and smack every enemy with a literally dung 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 dung.
So they just give you like a bunch of variables, right? You can
Pretty
just
much.
do
Oh,
whatever you want with them.
absolutely.
And, I mean, you have a Switch, right? Have you played Breath of the Wild yet?
I haven't. You think you like? Well, okay, I know.
Oh, somebody hasn't played Breath of the Wild.
But they basically, the game, I remember I watched a video essay on this. The game has systems, right? And it's got like a rain system, it has a climbing system, it has a physics system, it has a combat system, it has an enemy detection system, it has a fire system, it has like a wind system, you know? And they design the systems, and they set how the systems interact with each other, and that's it, you know? And so you have these systems that work with each other, and you can use them to however you want. So you can like shoot a fire arrow onto the grass that creates an updraft that you can set you can like fly up with, and then once you're in the air, you can like use metal and like
I think
like,
the
there's
most
just
iconic
infinite
one is probably
things.
the put the minecart on the metal plate and you stand in the minecart, use magnesis on the metal plate, and
and
lift
then
it
go
up.
fly.
That
to
one I think
fly
is a little broken. That one's a little broken.
It's so
but it's
funny
fun.
though,
It
dude,
is really funny.
that
But
you
like,
could use magnesis
you
to
can
just
make-
fly around.
like you can make a bunch of campfires, and if you make enough of them, it creates an updraft.
Or
and you
there's
can fly
and there's
off of
also the whole thing with like one of the big strats to like cover long distances in a short amount of time is you cut down a tree,
it. Yeah.
freeze the tree in time, grab your axe and swing really hard to do bum 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 bum. Give it momentum in that direction. Then you stand on it and literally ride the tree.
Yeah, you can
Like-
store momentum in objects. For you guys who haven't played Breath of the Wild, you can freeze an object in time and then hit it to give it momentum, so that when the time breaks, it will shoot out in that direction, and then you can climb on top of it. And then once the momentum finishes, you can ride it like
Yeah,
to
it's pretty-
direction. It's,
and it's
amazing.
like it's intended to be a thing where like you freeze an object as like an enemy or something, right? And you hit it a bunch of times so it launches at the enemy, or it's for puzzles, But there's just like, because the system exists in the way it does, in
And
that
they
you
didn't
can
restrict
apply
it,
it to
too.
any enemies. Yeah, there's no restriction. It's just really freeing to play.
It is an incredible experience, and I am very curious to see what they'll do for Breath of the Wild 2. I'm very curious. Like, do they keep it the same? Do you add more
What
systems?
do you do? How do you follow that
I
up?
really don't know.
I just want more.
VR.
What?
VR.
It's kind of
Isn't there VR?
There's
There's VR Smash.
There's VR
What?
Smash. It's with the Nintendo
It's not
Labo.
like
It's really bad.
It's
It's
like
awful.
it's a cardboard box,
Are you
and it
looking
runs
into
at
the
like
character's eyes?
it looks like 20
No.
frames a second, and it's like it's
You
pretty
just
bad.
get to
You
look
just
around.
look at the stage.
It's like-
it's
yeah,
literally
it's just like I was
the stage.
playing in real life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Except it's on your eyes.
But
I was gonna say, like, with that masterpiece of a game like Breath of the
Yeah.
Wild, it's gonna be really hard to follow it with something better.
incredibly
Expectations are already gonna be like really high.
difficult. I don't know what they're gonna do.
But-
And Breath of the Wild was in development for a long time. It got delayed quite a few times. And so, but one thing that I would like to see personally is more variety in enemy types and enemy AI. That was basically the one issue that I had with
It
Breath
was a
of the Wild.
glaring issue.
It was just you have the bokoblins, you have the moblins, you have the octopus,
Octoroks.
the octoroks, you have the
The Zalfos.
the lizards, okay,
There
and
are
the skeletons,
5 enemy types.
and then the skeletons,
Skeleton
mini
versions of
bosses.
those.
and then some mini bosses, right? I would love to see quite a larger array of unique mini bosses, like unique to a specific spot. Like
And they're also the
more-
Guardians and the Mini Guardians.
the Guardians and mini Guardians, but still.
Not
and
much.
so just a much larger variety in enemy
Well, 'cause,
types.
I mean, traditionally in Zelda games, there are tons of enemy types, and
Yeah.
you have to
Right.
interact with each of them in unique ways.
And so I think absolutely something like that, as well as maybe some more weapon types in there, and then no more like recoloring enemies, just make different
that
types
was a
of
large,
enemies.
and that's been like because I've been ever since I've been a child,
Yeah.
I've loved Zelda. Zelda's been like my favorite game series
Yeah.
since I was a kid, and the more recent games have a large issue with the make like 3 enemy prefabs and then keep recoloring it. It has been plaguing like the most recent
Or
Zelda games.
resize them.
Yeah,
A
exactly.
little bit of that is fine. I
It's
understand.
fine, absolutely.
Mario has Koopas. There's the red ones. There's the blue ones. There's the green ones. All these things. That's
Yeah.
fine. A little bit of it, but in Breath of the Wild,
But you notice there's no different colored Goombas.
there's no
Goombas are just
But
Goombas.
there are. There's the underground Goombas that are the darker blue.
Yeah, but
And
they're
they
not.
have to,
There's
like-
no difference.
And they can like stack Goombas.
There's no difference
The
though.
interesting thing is that like in those Mario games, those Goombas do different things, right? Like
They're
They're unique.
colors,
They're not
unique.
just a different color and more health.
And exactly,
That's
that's
true,
the
there
thing
are
with Breath of the
different ones.
Wild is that they're not special. They're just the same enemy. They just have more health, and that is the
Yeah.
worst way to approach game difficulty.
Yeah.
And I cannot overstate this.
Yeah.
It fucking
Stat
bugs me
checking.
so. Stat checking that bugs me so much
Yeah.
that when you like hit I want a harder difficulty and they just make enemies have more health and like you do less damage or something. The worst possible approach to game
RPGs have a
design
huge
ever.
problem with
I would
that.
agree.
Like,
That's
think
like
it's-
90% of all RPGs do that.
oh, I gotta
for
grind up because
difficulty.
my Pokemon is too low level for the stat check.
I love
Yeah.
Persona, but how it handles difficulty is AIDS. It basically
Yeah,
just
I mean,
gives you less XP.
The combat's really
That's it.
the combat's
Like,
really
what?
simplistic, so they don't really have much to work with. Like you can't say like, oh, the AI is gonna be more
Better.
Like the AI is gonna be better. Like I mean, how much better can the turn-based combat AI get? Oh, I use this ability. I mean, like what else do they
Well,
got?
and I think like that's a problem in RPGs, obviously. That's one of the reasons I've really, really enjoyed the combat in Amori is that, you have different weapons, and it didn't feel like, oh, I got a new weapon, it's better than the one I already had, I'm just going to put this one on. You get, like, for the guy who throws balls at things, right? You get the globe that never misses, right? And it's got decent attack. Or you have the coconut with slightly less attack, but it, like, ups your mana bar immensely because your mana is called juice in that game.
Yeah.
The coconut's filled with juice, you know?
Well, see,
Stuff like that.
I like
is
that
really
type of a
interesting.
system where it's not just a stat boost. It's not. I think.
It fundamentally
Well,
changes
and then there's
the
a
gameplay.
whole system I haven't even mentioned with emotions, right? But you can use certain abilities that are powered up by, like, if your teammate is angry and you have an ability that angers just that one person, but their defense goes down, their attack goes up. You can also have another ability that makes everyone angry. If the enemy's angry, that makes them different. And there's also other, emotions. Happy does a certain thing, sad does a certain thing, afraid does a certain thing. And it's really interesting how that system interacts with the follow-ups, interacts with the different weapons, interacts with specific abilities that do different things, that interact with other abilities in certain ways. It's really, really fun.
What that reminds me of is Team Fortress.
God.
Kind of wrap it back around, but Team Fortress, I love how the weapons are designed because there are no just that. Like, it's not like you get a weapon, it's like +2 damage. You're like, ooh, cool! I'll use this weapon. You have different weapons,
Justice.
like
Your
named
playstyle.
weapons, and they fundamentally change how the class is played. To the point where you call them different things, like demo you have
Knight.
regular demo, and then you have demo knight.
Right.
All you're doing is swapping the guy's weapons, but it fundamentally changes everything about that character to the point where it is unrecognizable, even in silhouette. Like,
Yeah,
it
he
changes.
stands different.
He stands different.
That's
And it's really interesting how viable the default weapons are. I know that, like, anytime I go to, like, play Scout, because I really like Scout, I like running around and jumping around. I'm always like, oh, I got the soda popper. It lets me, like, hop around. I should use that. You guys are like, no, dude. Use the default one. It's like,
that's the
why
funny
would I
thing
use
is that
the
for
default
Scout,
weapon?
the default weapon is
I think
undeniably the best.
For every class, pretty much without exception, there's a few little bit. The primary stock weapon is the best. With a slight exception for some, like you could be like, oh, sniper, I like this one better, or oh, on spy, I like the
And that's so
ambassador.
interesting. I can't think of any other game, really, where the default starting weapon for a character is, like, the weapon.
In an economy-based game, too, where it's,
where
here,
you
buy all
want to
those
get
stuff.
the fun weapons.
You're right.
Is it to try and eliminate like pay to win?
No, because
You
they
can
make
pay to
a-
win. There's
they-
tons of pay to win.
They make a ton of money off of that game, and really, but actually, you really can't
Go
pay
into
to
the
win.
Minecraft trade
I mean,
server.
you can pay to win, and that hats make you better, right?
Yeah, the cosmetics make you better.
The
yeah.
cosmetics that don't affect anything.
I don't really know anything about TF2, so I wasn't sure if these weapons you're talking
No,
about are something you
so
buy through a
really,
market or
so
not.
the thing in Team Fortress 2 is
It's
there's
all loot boxes.
pretty much everything, every weapon you can get through gameplay.
Oh, okay.
You can just there's
Scout's
just
playing.
random there's just random drops. What are you looking at?
Nothing.
Pretty girls.
We're just but in Team Fortress you can get every weapon through random drops. Which you're limited to like 12. I think you get 2 a week, right? But you could still technically not pay anything into the game and have all the weapons.
Yeah, the only money I've ever spent is on cosmetics, and I have all the weapons.
And so really there is no pay to win. However, it's funny though. Again, most of the stock stuff is just the best.
Yeah, I mean the weapons that you get, they're not like better. It's like you get like plus.
It's like a give and
20%
take,
firing
right?
Speed.
Yeah, it's give and
It's all
take.
give and take. You get like plus 20 firing speed, but you do 20% less damage. So it's
Right.
like
Yeah, in most cases,
every weapon is just a trade-off.
It's like to your playstyle,
Very
really.
nice.
so
absolutely.
It's like what you want.
Or-
I think
or-
they do give you a lot of options.
Or what the situation calls for too. You know,
Mhm.
some like the unfortunately the lock and load,
Yeah,
which
my favorite.
was the best. The lock and load was probably better than the stock.
Well, and as much as I personally am not a huge fan of playing TF2, I cannot deny how fantastic it is. Like,
I
it's
think-
a great game.
I think I think it really says something that it's still like the 4th most played
Right.
games
To
on
this
Steam
day,
right
it's
now.
still one of the most played games.
Which is really interesting. I mean, it was released in 2007 or 2009, 2007.
Yeah.
It's like easy to pick up,
It's
pick up,
super
and it's
easy.
just like
I mean,
fun to play with your
It's
friends.
just fun. It's
So,
simple.
yeah, it's simple
it's
enough.
very simple, but then you can get really deep into it, which
Yeah.
is really good.
And pretty much everyone on Steam has tried it since it's free
Oh
to play.
yeah.
Yeah.
True.
So that was who was the last person we asked
I was
about what
last
games?
one.
Yeah,
It was Caleb.
you guys want to talk?
Can I? Sorry,
Yeah,
I don't mean to make this
Okay,
go
it's fine,
forever.
fine, I'll leave.
But there was one more interjection I wanted to make because we were talking about game difficulty, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
like RPGs are horrible offenders of this, where they do like oh, you want a harder difficulty? We'll just up the
Stats.
enemy health or something
And
like
lower
that.
your damage.
Well,
Yeah,
a lot
exactly.
of the time they do reward you with better loot on
Which is
RPGs.
on like Diablo or something,
Yes.
which I've been playing with Scout recently, and she's having a lot of fun with it. But it is very cool. We're on like super mega death mode because it's super difficult, but you get banger loot and you get a lot of money, and so it's like I'll play on super mega death mode if I get the best loot. Yeah, I don't care. But my favorite thing with video game difficulties is Dark Souls. Now, that might seem weird because Dark Souls doesn't have a difficulty system, but that is exactly what I mean. I love the idea of common experiences. When everyone is playing on the same difficulty and is experiencing the same game, like, that's amazing to me. Like, you know, video game journalism, the joke that is. Like the people who reviewed Dark Souls 3, like, they were just and like Sekiro was a huge offender of this.
yeah.
They were just whining and bitching and complaining about how this game needs an easy mode. It needs accessibility. That's what, like, the word they were using as like a buzzword. They were like, oh, it's not accessible because like people who are bad at video games can't play it. And it's like, okay, Scout is literally like doesn't ever play video games.
Scout
Her
is-
extent of information on video games was like Pokemon.
Before, I
and
talked to
Animal
her.
Crossing.
Before we
played-
would play video games with her, it was pretty much nothing.
Yeah, she had basically not touched anything. She played like some like RPGs online,
She
like
played,
Lord of the Rings online or
I think
something.
she played a Pokemon game.
Yeah,
Yeah, she
but
played Pokemon.
but she beat the entirety of Dark Souls 3 and Bloodborne by herself for the most part. Like it's completely inexcusable to say that like someone who's completely new to the game and has never touched it before can beat the entire thing by themselves with enough determination, and that
I-
plays into the common experience that everyone is experiencing the same thing, and that everyone knows exactly how someone else felt when they were playing through that part of the game.
Monster Hunter has one difficulty as well, right?
Yeah, there's no
Yeah, it's just
change
Monster
difficulty,
Hunter.
but it's so varied with like the different monsters that you can hunt.
yeah.
It's basically you seek out difficulty.
Yeah, like it's like you fight an easy monster versus a hard monster, and your rewards are directly related. So that's all I wanted to say about that. I just love how like Dark Souls is unwavering in
Especially for what it is too. It's great in that you go with you expect that from Dark Souls. You're like,
Right.
oh, Dark Souls, that's synonymous with difficult game. I mean, you hear that and everybody says, oh, this is the Dark Souls of.
is that.
Well,
Right.
it's interesting how
It's
other
such a
games
cop-out.
handle that too. Like,
I mean,
It's not even that
like
hard.
Cuphead Cuphead had an easy mode, but you literally could not finish the game if you played on easy. You could only play to a certain point before it's like, no, you got to switch it to like.
Really?
normal
Cuphead
mode.
I've never heard of that.
I'm pretty certain. I
I
might
don't
be
know.
wrong. If I remember correctly, that was like a thing when it came out. They're like, yeah, you can play these beautiful hand-drawn animated like fight scenes with the boss. You can play all of them to a certain point on easy if you just want to see the art. But if you want the full game, you have to play on normal.
Yeah, I think like a game like Cuphead really. I don't know, because I don't think a game like Cuphead should have a.
How
and
fast things are moving, how much health they have.
It's kind of a difficult thing because then I don't know, but Evan, you bring up an excellent point. Scout being able to finish Dark Souls and Bloodborne by herself nearly.
It's a cop out to say that the games are too hard.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, what do you expect when you get those games? They're hard games.
That's literally their namesake. That's what they're known as. That's why Cuphead is the Dark Souls of the boss fight. Shut up.
It's like going to a game
It's
like
so
Animal
stupid.
Crossing and complaining, it's too easy. Animal
Yes.
Crossing's
That's
too
what
easy.
it's meant to be.
Exactly.
It's like, okay.
You don't
Johnny?
get mad at bread for being bread.
So talk about things, bro.
What games have you recently played?
I have been playing Hades, League obviously.
Oh, Hades, nice.
How's the league grind been recently?
It's been alright. I'm not playing too much ranked at the moment,
Is,
but I'm just playing with friends.
Are you
How's
still
your
waiting
mental-
on the new
How's your
season?
mental health?
Yeah,
Mental
that's
health,
it.
I'm gone,
Boom.
bro.
Yeah, are you still waiting on the new season to really like start grinding?
Well, the new season started, but
Oh, okay, gotcha.
I played a little bit up to like 20 games. It's not too much.
I'm wondering
So-
because like I mean to bring this up at some point, but you've got a scholarship, right, based off of playing league.
Well,
right?
not yet. Or,
Not yet?
I'm not like seeking anything yet.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
But
I thought. Okay,
no,
my
the
bad.
thing is, I want to get like really, really, really good before I like try to really go competitive. So.
I'll be right
Okay.
back. Don't skip me.
And I'm like,
But like, okay. My bad. For some reason I thought you were going to a certain school because you had like.
Well, they have like a
there.
like a league program, and I did talk to like the person about it, and like I think the season's coming up for to play.
Well, like
in the team.
how well do you have to rank to be like able to apply for that and able like. I don't know how to be viable for that.
Like,
Have to get in.
There's okay.
I mean, you said you're what, like top 0.05% of players or something.
Yeah, right. Well,
obviously, there's an astronomical number of players.
Yeah, the season just started, so I'm like at like under 1% still, but which okay, it sounds high, but it's really like it's not
still
that
under 1% is still rather impressive. I mean, that is.
You talk about 0.05%. That's ridiculous, you know.
I
can't even get to bronze in Street Fighter.
Right.
Well, the thing is, like in League, if you want to make it to like the really, the high money competitive, you have to be in like the the top 0.0003.
Really?
Or something like
top
that.
0.0003.
Yeah, which is
Since
like
that's such a low percentage, would you have like an estimate of actually how many people it is? Like 1,000, like 2,000?
well, there's 200 in Challenger. I think there's 500 in Grandmaster.
What
and
percentage is do you know what percentage Challenger is? Like
top 200. So it's got to be like 0.0004
like,
or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's a specific number on the
Okay,
board.
so that's so strange that top you are higher than your top 1% of players. You're even better than that, and yet that still doesn't really guarantee you a spot in the competitive.
Well, the
scene.
thing is, there's a lot of there's like a lot of competitive for different tiers.
Sure.
Right? Because like I'm on like the league Discord sometimes, and there's like a competitive tab, and then there's like teams looking for gold players,
right,
and stuff like that. Yeah, I know. It's funny. And then there's there's tiers for like diamond, which is something that I did apply for one of the teams. I've noticed that competitive is really way different. Like since I played with like an actual like competitive team. It's a way different than I thought.
And you've always been a gamer who strived.
Yo,
we don't use that term at this table.
Sorry.
Come on, man.
You've always been a player who strives to play at a really high level in any game that you decide you want to play. Like in Destiny, you were a very sweaty Trials player, and you straight up abandoned the friend group like numerous times because you're like, oh, my raid team's online, I gotta go raid with them. We'd be like mid-raid, struggling with an encounter and having fun, laughing with the boys, and you're like, oh, sorry guys, my serious team's on right now, I've gotta go raid with them.
There were high stakes.
You just wanted the Galahorn.
Did you ever get it?
I did.
Of course he did. Come on. You know how much he played?
I played so much.
How long did you spend getting like that one shotgun, the Ikalos?
Oh
dude,
my god,
don't talk about it.
Did you ever get it?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
Right, like 2 months before it was sunset. Yeah. But would you say that, like, for instance, I know you mentioned that you like fighting games and you kind of want to get into them. Would you say there's a barrier to entry because it's not something that you are experienced with and you're not already, you hop in and you're
that's
well
what I
ranked
wanted
and
to
good
say.
at
Was
it?
like those competitive games, CS:GO, fighting games in general. The thing is, like, with me personally, like, if I'm not like good at it immediately, then I'm just gonna get like really frustrated and just like it's whatever. Just because I'm not familiar with it, not the game's bad or anything, but this is like my own skill. Like I'm not
And
happy
I wonder
with it.
why did League stick? Because I remember like we played it.
Yeah,
we played it like I think it was like the summer of
Who
2014.
introduced you to
I
League?
did.
Oh, you did.
I think so.
Well, it was the summer of
It
2014.
is
I don't
Listen,
You.
The summer of 2014, I watched like a member of Team 4-Star on their gaming channel play League, and I saw him do like I think whoever the guy with the big knives is who could like throw knives across.
Shaco?
I don't know, dude.
Okay, yeah, well,
He threw big knives. All right, I think it was like Draven.
Oh, Mundo.
Draven.
Draven. Yeah.
He played Draven, and he was like making jokes, and it looked really fun. Like it looked like a fun time with his commentary, and I was like, "Ooh, this sounds like a fun game." Emmanuel, Johnny, you guys, this is a team game. It seems kind of fun, fight people, and we all got into it. And I was very bad at it. I was like play Fizz and Caitlyn. I'd hop around on the Trident and I'd shoot people with the net. And I never really wanted to get better. I was just playing it as a game. My mentality was not competitive anyway. But you and Emmanuel started getting good. Like you were like grinding at it and getting really good. And I was just kind of like, I'm gonna go now. But why did that stick? Because like none of us were good at first, of course.
Right. Well, I'm sure you guys like know, like you play Smash, you play fighting games. It feels so good to beat somebody like one-on-one and just say like you are better than this person, and then you can do something with that.
Yeah.
Like for example in League, you can put your lead into other parts of the map and stuff like that. And even in fighting games, you're just better than that player, and you can just like say that. It just feels really good.
Absolutely.
I want to say mostly just because like a lot of friends played it. I know Evan played it, Bryce Schultz played it, and I think
Dropped his full name.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Back in the
But,
day,
me.
dude, running
I'm
so.
and Caleb, of course, yeah.
Well, I know
Caleb,
Emmanuel was
but-
really big into it for a while. For a while,
Yeah, Emmanuel.
I don't remember. I always thought Emmanuel was like better than you, but I think that was only because I talked to Emmanuel about it more than I talked
Oh,
to
he
you about
was.
it.
He was.
He
a lot
was really
better.
good. I'm kind of bummed that he stopped like taking it seriously because
Yeah.
he seemed really
Well, he
good
got
at
into
it for a
Smash
while.
with you guys. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's totally cool. But no, yeah, he was definitely better than me. Like,
It's
like, a
crazy
lot
when
of
he
points.
applies himself at a game and he wants to like improve. It's
That's with
crazy
anyone.
how.
With anyone, with anything.
Oh, totally.
Yeah,
So, like,
absolutely.
Games.
Remember when we used to run Sona Yi bot lane?
I remember.
Them's
Like
were the
level
days.
5.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
But no, yeah, that's the charm of competitive games.
yeah.
Do you feel that
Being
you
someone.
enjoy League more now compared to when you first started?
Enjoy is a strong word.
I know for League in
do you feel you
particular.
played out of obligation or out of like a want to get better or like because it's
I always
familiar?
want to get better, and I already know what's happening in the game, so I can keep up with like the meta changes and stuff like that.
It's convenient.
With that being said, like,
I mean,
what, like this is more of just our friend group thing. Would you be interested in getting into a new fighting game with me and Evan when it comes out?
Fighting
It looks
games
quite
are,
nice,
are they're definitely fun for me. But like I feel like the only competitive game I'll stick with like actually would be just like League. Like
Mhm.
Right.
even other MOBAs like Dota or like anything like that I'm probably not gonna get into. Just because I'm like really familiar and like
yeah.
Right,
I
and you're
know how
kind
to
of
do
like
things.
you're like in it, you know, like you've
Yeah.
invested a lot of your
Exactly.
energy, time,
that-
money, like
$0.
like
so that yeah.
but I mean, but you're like really good at it, so you know, like
Yeah,
it-
and
you
also
keep-
if
Ain't
you-
win cosmetics, you know.
keep going, bro. Like you know, don't
Yeah.
stop. Definitely.
Evan, I think I've told you this before, but if I was ever to get like go pro at something, it would be like a racing game. I don't know. I just feel like I could be really good at racing game. I could enjoy a racing game, but I don't think there's.
Are there-
any
I-
esports-
I was
don't
gonna
think
say
there's any
I've never
competitive-
heard of like the esports scene for racing games.
Even for like because I would say no racing game is really like nobody says, oh, have you played what's the racing game,
Forza.
right? Forza, but
That's like the most
Mario
popular one,
Kart.
but it's not.
but other than Mario Kart, really,
Mhm.
like Mario Kart's and then
I have heard of more competitive Mario Kart scenes
Yeah.
than I have
Any other racing
any
game.
other
Any
racing
other racing
game.
game.
Because there's Mario
one of
Kart
the weird things
speedrunning.
with one of the weird things with Mario Kart, I don't think it could ever go competitive simply
It's
on
because of
the
the game
merit.
design.
Oh, well, it's game design
It's
intentional,
random.
of course, but
Too
like
random.
characters are intentionally better than others.
It's-
Dry Bowser is the best character,
Dry Bowser's
but the
the
problem is like it's not a fighting game where Joker's the best character, but we can both play Joker. You can't both play Dry Bowser. There's only one Dry
There's
Bowser
only one
slot
Dry Bowser,
in the game,
and
so it's like
typically, even if you two had the exact same, like if the guy who plays Dry Bowser is the best in the world and you're like second best,
it's luck.
you won't lose or you won't win. Period. Excuse me, you won't win. Period. Unless you get lucky with like an item pull or something. Otherwise, you won't win because Dry Bowser simply has better stats because he has a higher top speed, but his weight is lower than like regular Bowser. And so Dry Bowser is just this weird character for some reason. They were like, oh, let's make him a little lighter, but he has a higher top speed, which actually normally it's the heavier you are, the higher your top speed. Dry Bowser is not that case for some reason, and so he's just objectively better than the rest.
He's got the advantage of a light and a heavy character with neither of the downsides.
But he
acceleration and top speed.
He doesn't really have great acceleration. It's just better than the other heavy characters.
Yeah.
There's like no nerfs coming.
No, it's
No,
it's
Mario
a
Kart.
game.
It's like, bro, when are they gonna nerf like checkers? Like,
I keep getting kings.
it's like nobody gives a shit, right? Like,
Yeah.
so, but that's why that game will never have a competitive scene because
No.
it's just like a joke, you know?
Yeah,
It's
I
like,
think I came up with a reason why, just on the spot here, of why there's no competitive racing games is because now that I think about it, most of the racing games have pretty good graphics, and if people wanted to watch that, they just go watch like actual racing.
It's
Someone
fair,
wants
like-
to watch that. It's kind of boring.
it kind of
you
just
can't do a
looks
Hadouken
like
in real life.
exactly
It's
like
just
a
like-
racing game,
like
or
real
like
life
racing.
with more steps.
Well, see,
Just-
the
why not
reason-
just watch real life? It's more interesting because people might die. I
I-
don't know.
I
It's
think-
hard to commentate on it too.
I
Yeah.
think the reason we watch
Taking a left turn.
esports.
Another one.
No, I think the reason we watch
One more time.
esports is because the Daigo pairing, stuff like that. That doesn't happen. There is
It's so
zero.
cool.
There,
Whoa, he's
there is
joking.
zero capacity for that in racing games. Like
It's
you
just
know,
so linear,
there's
you know?
even though like
Except for, have you seen? There's like one thing. It's like this arcade racing game where it's this Japanese like what is the running in the '90s anime called?
Eurobeat.
Fuck, whatever. It's a racing game based on a racing anime,
Yeah.
and there's like this crazy turn where it's like fully an S, but like super stretched out horizontally. So
Yeah.
it's like you have to slow down to take that turn. But this dude in a car like hits the e-brake and drifts in such a way that he's like facing the complete wrong way.
I think
so
I
he
saw
drifts
that.
around and can
He
go forward
drifts, like,
straight out of the S.
completely in a circle.
It's insane.
And drifts all
but
the way
that's,
through it.
Like, that's just in that game, and that's specific to that map. You can't have those kinds of moments on any other map, really.
Right.
Like,
And so
Their demand
that's-
for it. So
There's not enough.
So that's
and if there were other
probably-
cars on the road, if it was an actual race, then he couldn't have done that. Like,
Right.
there's too many variables that make it not hype most of the time, I think.
I think that's probably why there's no such, and I don't see it ever happening. Really, I mean, you could probably
The
like do
RGC,
you
the
could do a
racing game
weird
community.
combo genre thing where you're like, oh, it's racing, and there's like FPS elements. I don't know. Like if you did some weird
Mad
thing
Max.
that
Yeah.
introduced some other element into it, maybe. But I don't think
It's
it would
just
work
like
otherwise.
get to point A to
It
point
just-
B.
It's racing.
fast.
I
It's
just
not
don't-
really designed with competitiveness in mind.
yeah, which is fine. It's just
like
I mean, it's entertaining.
actually,
to look at.
Trackmania has a lot of competitiveness on certain tracks, like getting a certain time on tracks. I know there's a lot of competitive.
Maybe in like the speedrunning
it's
community.
speedrunning. But
I guess that's
like,
what it's called,
like
yeah.
tournament community though is
There's no
kinda different.
tournaments because
Yeah.
it's like it's you versus you. You're trying to beat your time.
Evan,
Yeah.
Yes,
Our
me.
final
I shall
speaker
go.
tonight.
Final one. I know.
what are you playing, man?
We're running on time. Anyways,
Okay. We're good.
I want to
2
talk
hours.
about something that I have been playing. I've been playing a lot of games recently. I've been playing Bloons Tower Defense. I know everyone loves that. It's
Yes,
the hot.
sir.
It's
We
the
all-
hot new game.
Apparently.
Came out like 2 years
Yeah,
ago.
no, we're all late to the party.
I was
You just
playing this game called Kingdoms 2 Crowns. I don't know if
Oh,
anyone's ever heard of it.
I've
It's
seen you
really,
playing that
yeah.
last whole week.
It's really fun. You're like a guy on a horse, you're ruling a kingdom. But the game that I want to talk about for my sec, it's my party. I get to
It's
Talk
my
about my
party.
game.
I get to talk about my game. I want to talk about Hollow Knight. I played
Oh.
Hollow Knight a long time ago, and I was wandering around aimlessly because it's a Metroidvania. For anyone who's not familiar with a Metroidvania it's basically it's a 2D platformer that is centered around progression and character abilities. So maybe you'll see a wall that you can break, but maybe you don't have like the missile launcher that you need to break the wall, or that there's like a hole that you don't have like the correct crouch ability to like slide into, or it's about like getting abilities that unlocks areas of the map and allows for more progression. And it usually entails a lot of backtracking because you'll see something that you can't access. You go later, you get an ability, then you go back to that start, and you can now access that area that leads to more areas. And they also, like, a lot of times they'll have RPG elements. So Hollow Knight is a Metroidvania made by Team Cherry, and it is absolutely fucking amazing, and I believe it is incredibly criminal to not have played this game. There's no excuse because it is on every platform imaginable to man, and the deluxe edition is $15 and it goes on sale all the time.
If
So-
you think you're coming in late, there's a new game coming out. Silk Song looks excellent.
Yes, and
So,
there's a new game coming
I'm
out.
excited. So it's very interesting what they've been saying about Silksong. They said they kind of have to change the way the game is because Hornet's height just makes it different. She's taller than the Knight,
Right.
in Hollow Knight, and because of that, they have to design it a little different.
I mean, but that's cool. I mean,
Which
I
I
think
think
the
I
agility
like the
looks
change.
awesome.
But
It looks
like-
unique from Hollow Knight. It's
Yeah.
not Hollow Knight 2. It's not,
Right.
Metroid. You're not playing as Samus in every game, despite, different environments. You're a new character, and that requires new challenges and new, stuff. It's very cool.
But gosh, I could gush about Hollow Knight forever, but I
it's-
absolutely think that everybody with any potato-ass computer or Nintendo Switch or Xbox or PlayStation should absolutely
you've
play
got.
this fucking game.
It
It
is.
makes me want to
How
cry.
far are you?
So the thing is, that's another thing that I want to talk about. It's so hard to gauge progression because there's a million
lot of-
How
fucking
many
things
hours?
you could
Well,
do.
What boss did you just beat? What's the most recent boss you beat?
I haven't beaten a boss in a while. I guess you can count
You
the
beat the false knight.
Desolate Dive
Oh.
guy. The mage guy in
the
the
whiz, the
yeah, but like I've played like
Whiz
10
biz.
hours since then without fighting a boss because I've been doing so
there's
much
so
like
much more to
progression.
do, yeah.
That game is just so beautiful. The art is amazing. The soundtrack is
I mentioned,
beautiful.
I absolutely love how their environments are constructed, where you have that foreground shadowed elements that you see unshadowed in the actual background, like where you're walking around, and then
Right.
even further back you see more stuff going on back there,
There-
and it's all moving in parallax. It just looks fantastic.
their
It's
lighting,
great.
they somehow incorporated like this beautiful like 3D-esque lighting into a 2D engine that is amazing. It's made with Unity.
Right.
But it is amazing, and the storytelling is like, I think it's probably my favorite of like any game I can think of, because they give you just a little bit to start with, and then they just lay out these pieces that you find, and you seek them out. You're like, oh, I gotta know more.
Everything is about you. Like there's a million paths you can go, and it's all about what you want to do. Like you see something cool, and then you just go for it. And the parkour is amazing. I love the parkour.
Really
like
good.
you and
Especially
actually,
once you get like the mantis claw and shit.
the movement options is one of my favorite things about the game. You have like a wall jump, you have a double jump, you got an air dash, you got like you have so many options available to the player that making just the simple act of moving around the environment is an enjoyable experience.
And that's that is probably the most important thing. I mean, and like the combat is it's very satisfying. It's very quick, but it's very satisfying.
And the charm system allows for customization of gameplay, and like you can make your own builds that function entirely independent from like another player's build, and they are just so fantastic. And I cannot like talk enough about how I think Hollow Knight's fucking amazing.
It's very long too. Like
and there's tons of content.
It's not too long. It's just right, and the DLC is great. Everything about it is
something interesting about it, and a couple other indie games that I played recently, being like Amori and A Short Hike. It oozes that Nintendo polish.
Yes.
And that's not something I really want to tackle tonight. That's actually something I wanted to have as one of our main talking points next week. What is Nintendo polish? What is it that we look for in a game and we're like, that looks good, that looks finished?
Let's give Caleb like a brief.
Oh, totally. I'm not trying to end it right this second. I'm just saying, like,
is that like a common phrase in like Nintendo games?
It is amongst our friend group at least, and like
I think,
people who play Nintendo games.
I think people kind of have a general like nobody. I don't really hear people use the phrase, but I'm sure there's kind of a general understanding of what it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of this idea that, especially in older Nintendo games, specifically first party and some third party stuff that they were publishing on NES, SNES, N64, and in the GameCube. A little less so on the Wii, but most of their first party
garbage on the Wii.
Most of their first party stuff follows this. All of their games are incredibly polished to a point where there's really no like playing casually. You cannot find any glitches. You cannot find any typically no frame rate dips, nothing like that.
No performance issues.
The movement is typically like impeccable, like it's perfect feeling.
Is this on like purely offline games?
Yeah,
Nintendo is
Nintendo
horrible
doesn't
with
really
their
do
online.
It's like
online. Really
it's that
didn't.
thing like Nintendo has so much charm to their first party games that you don't go to the Switch to get best graphics.
I was actually gonna buy that game. I was on my pre-order list.
I was like, the announcement. I was like, oh, this is a great idea. MMO Pokemon, of course, everybody wants that. I'm happy to see somebody else give it a go. this Pokemon game, and then they release it, and it's just I'm saddened by it. Really,
that's something I love
worse. Like they don't look good. And then Ukulele, is another example. Ukulele has some glaring problems with the gameplay and movement. It feels bad, and it's lacking polish. And it's
we're saying Nintendo polish, but it is just polish. It's that the finishing touches. The game is functioning, and then you go one step further.
That Nintendo seal of approval.
Exactly.
You used to see on like Wii games. Is that little gold?
That's a good game.
That's a good game.
And the only reason it's associated, the way we associate with Nintendo is it's because it's most often found on those games. Is that those games are just off their first party, older games tend to be incredibly polished.
Yeah.
For what the system was, of course. I mean, obviously N64 holds up a little less today. That being said, with that polish, it's still really good.
People are still playing
People
Mario
still
64.
play Mario
It's one of the
64.
most viewed games on Twitch to this day. And that game, what was like 25 years ago
that's
or
something we're going to go into, I think, a lot more next time, just because we're at like over 2 hours.
Yeah, I
at
think
this
we should
point.
wrap it up.
Next time, I think we're going to talk a lot about what exactly Nintendo polish is to a little further extent, and games that have captured that and why they did.
I would like to,
for instance, why do I find
Cyberpunk.
Omori comparable to Mother 3 when it's made by this small team of indie devs that have never made a game like that before, have never made games before, you know?
Yeah.
Why did Undertale have that polish that games strive for, even though it was just Toby Fox making it pretty much by himself in 6 months, you know?
Why is it important? Why does this stuff matter? Why does the movement matter? Why do people play Mario 64 today?
All these things.
Why does Cyberpunk suck ass?
Yeah, why does Cyberpunk
Well,
suck ass?
precisely why
I think
Cyberpunk.
it's good. I mean, no, aside from the bugs,
on a
It's just
technical
unfinished.
Level, why did it suck ass on a technical level?
Yeah.
I mean, that's fact. It does,
And yeah, and that's all stuff we're going to
yeah,
cover next time.
exactly.
Anyway,
No debate.
thank you guys for listening into the podcast. This is like one of our most viewers the whole time streams. Very cool.
Yeah, we had.
We peaked
Awesome.
at like 11.
We'll be here next week. The stream will be starting somewhere between 6:30 and 7. I don't know if it'll go quite this long, but we're going to be talking Nintendo Polish, games coming out next year, probably some more current esports stuff, just because today was a little bit more general.
If any news gets announced.
Yeah, of course, and all that stuff. Anyway, tune in next week. Thank you guys for being here.
Adios.
Adios.
Poggers indeed.
Yeah, you can't say that.
I haven't stopped the audio yet, ding dong.
Poggers.
You can't
Adios.
say that on stream.